report. And finally, staff believe that the Plan Commission believes that the land division standards for the certified survey map can be found met. With that, I will be happy to answer questions after the public hearing.
Thanks, Chris. All right, we have registrants for this public hearing, so I will open the public hearing. A few of our speakers have pooled time, so we'll have groups that will have a pooled 9 minutes to share their comments. Other registrants will have up to 3 minutes for our standard rule, and I will interrupt briefly when there's a minute to a half a minute left just to help you plan your time. But we'll have Megan walk us through the list, and Megan, maybe if you could say whose turn it is and then who will be after them so they can be prepared, that would be great. Thanks.
That sounds great. And I'll just note for the commission and for all of our registrants, we have an unusually long registrant list tonight. And so just appreciate your patience as we make sure that everyone is covered in this list. So first we'll hear from the applicant team represented by John Majewski and Josh Dawson of Majewski Architects representing Landmark Properties, and Jim Buchanan of LCD Acquisitions. This group is going to pool their time for a total of 9 minutes. And will be followed by the team representing Madison Trust. So please be prepared for that group to speak next. We have Jesse here.
Yeah, Jesse, did you have the names for the speakers, Jesse? Or should we say them again?
Can you repeat the names again? Sorry.
Yes. We have John Majewski, Josh Dawson, and Jim Buchanan.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, John, we can.
Okay, great. There was no hand raising or anything to show up. So thank you very much. My name's John Majewski. I am with Majewski Architects, the architect for the project. And first of all, I just wanted to make sure to thank the staff for all the help and guidance they gave us on this project, and especially in working through with UDC, which was instrumental in helping us to inform the architecture and the shape and style of the building. I also want to thank Landmarks for helping us understand why they didn't feel we should replicate the facade. We spent a lot of time talking about 433 Gilman, and really respect the idea that we worked with the UDC to create new buildings that use both elements from 415 and 433 in our presentation. And I'm going to walk you through that today. Next slide, please. This just runs through all of the different areas for the building. You can skip through that. I think we have the wrong slide deck, Chris. This one I'm just going to have to fly through really quick because it has a lot of elements in it, but I can do that. So let's run through the next. Just go next, please. This just shows where the site is. I think everybody pretty much knows where that is by now. Here you can show the massing or the site before we had anything placed within it. Next. Here you can see the general massing of the buildings as they pop up along Gilman. This is kind of looking from the State Street side. Next. Here are just some extra photos showing you the context, more context. Other architectural surrounding buildings. Here's our first floor, just getting a little closer. The next image. This is the lower level parking and bicycle storage. Next. Oops, we skipped one. This is the first floor, and I think this is probably the most important. We spent a lot of time talking about this with UDC. We wanted to create one entrance for the parking to come in and out, and to also have the trash loading in and off of that area. Next to that, to the left of the upper plan, is our easy access bike storage. And in front of that are two very large window displays, which will house 415 and 433 architectural displays that'll be created by a professional display firm that we want to engage. And we're going to work with Landmarks and planning to create what goes in there. It's going to be everything that they asked for, but we also want to do 3D scans of the building so we can show 3D images. We want to include plans, elevations, and renderings, models so that we can represent Master Hall even better, and potentially salvage elements from the building. As you go across the building, the kind of orangish color is our lobby. To the right of that, at the corner, on the upper right-hand corner, is the retail. UDC stressed they wanted it on that side as close to State Street as possible. Next. Here you can just see as we're going up higher in the building. Next. Keep moving up. We have 3 courtyards on the inside of the building and 3 recesses at the front. The building steps back at this location because of the sloping site and steps back yet even further as we keep going up. The corner clips due to zoning. One more step, another one. Then you get to where the roof deck is, the pool is on that upper level, and then that upper shaft of that tower pops up. Next, and that goes all the way up. Next. Then we really wanted to show you that the building had kind of a concept of trying to have a base, a shaft, and a top, and that's what these really represent. Next. Just picking up on some architectural elements that were important to us, including Master Hall and 433 Gilman. Next. You can skip through that one. This shows you a rendering of the building now, and you're seeing how we worked, and it'll pop up a little bit closer when we get closer, but we tried to separate the building into the 4-story masses at the base, and then the shaft and the tower up above. Next. This is looking from State Street. Next. Just looking from the back side. Next. These are close-ups of the retail. It was really important at the UDC that we show the concept of how it functions, maybe without planters in front, what it would work with planters in front, how it would work on sidewalk sale days, and how it could work as a cafe if we open it up in front. Next. This really shows you our main entrance and the entrance into the parking garage. And then on the far right are the 2 displays to represent the former buildings. Next. Here you're seeing the overall elevations and massing. Next. Just looking at the other side. Next. Next, please. You can skip through that one. These just run through a lot of technical details. And this is the one that Chris went through. So if there's any questions that came up from that before, we can run through that when we get to your question and answer session. I do want to make sure that everybody's aware that 10% of the beds in this project will be affordable. Next. And here you can see the palette for the materials. And it was important at the base that at those 4 larger brick elements, we incorporated elements from 433, which is where the overall brick tone came from and where the windows and the triple setups of having 3 sash windows next to each other. The central brick element and stone element comes from that building. And then around floors 2 and 3, we have a stone frame, which picks up on the frames that are on Master Hall. So we worked hard to find a way to incorporate those elements into the architecture without replicating it, but actually just letting it be a part of it, and then spent a lot of time in thinking how we could honor those previously built buildings at 415 and 433. Next. This was just important to the UDC that there's really some depth to the upper facade. So we were able to achieve 5 inches, which is something that they were happy about. Next. These are just some detailed gardens within the courtyards. They're actually going to function really quite wonderfully. Sorry, next. It's just giving you setbacks and showing how the massing works along the street in section. These are shadow studies. Next. You can click right through those. And then these are just, it's important to see how this looks at night. I don't think it'll ever all be lit up like this. We do use dark sky fixtures, so all of our lighting is shining down. And this just gives you that one same view that I previously talked about. If you go to the next one, I think it'll show you the next corner. And I think I just want to make sure to leave enough time to let Jim just add in a few more comments. And I think I'm coming up on a minute and a half. So with that, Jim, do you mind taking it away?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm with the development team here. I'm a developer on the project. I know tonight there will be some consideration regarding the changes this development would bring. And I want to acknowledge 3 meaningful steps we've taken to mitigate these concerns. So the first is, as part of that additional height ordinance, we're going to be including 10% of all beds at an affordable discount to market rates, which is going to mitigate any displacement of existing beds significantly. We also worked extensively with city staff and the UDC to design a building that really reinterprets and honors the site's history. And this resulted in a unanimous recommendation for approval from UDC. And the third thing is we are going to be investing significantly in a really beautiful museum quality display that's going to be done by a third party that's going to document the history of the Stratford Apartments and Master Hall. And as part of that, in the future, if we're approved here, we are happy to meet with some of the folks here to get their feedback on that exhibit at the time when we're putting it together with that group.
All right.
That worked. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Thanks. Is that that's the conclusion? I think you guys hit your time, so I appreciate that. Megan, we can go to the next group.
Okay, as we move on to the next group, I'll just note from the applicant team, there are 3 other people here that are available to answer questions. That includes Angie Black, representing LCD Acquisitions and Landmark Properties, Kyle Jones of Landmark Properties, and Sarah Church, representing Bierbecker. Our next speaker will be representatives from the Madison Trust for Historic Preservation, who are registered in opposition and wishing to speak with a pooled time. This includes Rick Chandler, Lynn Bjorkman, Kurt Steggy, John Rolling, and Jean Parks. So this group will also have 9 minutes.
Jean, I see your mic is unmuted. I don't know if you're going first, but Kurt, yours is also unmuted, so you guys could have the.
Yes, I was not. I think we provided the sequence to the planning director.
Okay, that is
Thanks.
which you'd like to speak. Then we'll start with Rick Chandler.
Great.
Actually, I think the sequence we had provided was John Rolling, then Lynn Bjorkman, then me, then Jean Parks, then Kurt Steggy. Is it possible to do it in that sequence?
So the floor is yours for the 9 minutes, so you can speak in the order in which you planned.
Yeah, I think each of you has the ability to unmute yourself, so I think that seems fine.
We'll let John kick it off then.
Thanks, Rick. Yep. All right. John's mic is showing on mute. John, are you able to unmute?
yeah.
There we go.
Are we on? Good.
Yes.
I prepared the Landmarks nomination for Master Hall on behalf of the Trust. My research confirmed the Landmarks Commission finding that this building is potentially eligible for landmark status. The full nomination is in your packet, and I hope that you have been able to review it. But your role tonight is not to decide whether this building should be landmarked. That's the job of the Landmarks Commission and the Common Council. I expect that the Landmarks Commission will soon recommend that Common Council grant landmark status to Master Hall. Now, instead, your decision tonight needs to follow the standards of approval within the demo ordinance. The Landmarks Commission has already rated this building a rare A for architectural and historic significance. The standards which identify factors that may outweigh the public interest in preserving historic resources list: first, deteriorated building condition; second, structural or fire hazard; or 3, that the, quote, building has been so altered that it cannot convey its historical association or architectural significance, unquote. Now, nothing in the demo submission mentions deteriorated condition. The building remains rented to 100 plus tenants, so is presumably livable. No one has claimed that the building's a fire hazard or is structurally compromised. As to alterations, the Landmarks Commission and its staff have already commented that the building is remarkably intact. And I can testify that the building's exterior appearance is the same today as when I first saw it in 1972, a few years after its construction. This intact characteristic is important. We landmark buildings not only to recognize them, but to preserve them as living artifacts that, in the words of the statement of principle of the demo ordinance itself, quote, tell the story of Madison. Master Hall does that storytelling. The developer has obtained an assessment of Master Hall by an outside architectural consultant. I see that the consultant covered much of the same material as I did, but then argues that Master Hall is not worthy of recognition. I suggest that you give more credence to the historical and architectural judgment of our Madison Landmarks Commission and its staff, and to the volunteers of the Madison Trust for Historic Preservation, than to the Sheboygan consultant opinion commissioned by the Georgia developer. We urge you to deny the demolition permit for Master Hall. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Rick.
Rick, you're unmuted. We should be able to hear you.
Thank you. I'm Rick Chandler, president of the Madison Trust, and I just wanted to say a few words about our approach to things. We want to preserve the best of the past and protect the places that make Madison special. This involves promoting development that's compatible with sustaining our unique sense of place. We're not anti-development. We simply want development that's compatible with maintaining the look and feel of the neighborhoods that people love. Our track record shows that we have a broad perspective. Our 24 historic architecture walking tours cover a wide range of neighborhoods. We've been active in filing landmark nominations. We've prepared 10 of the last 13 approved Madison landmark nominations. In the past, the city prepared most landmark nominations, but that has not been the case in the past several decades. We cover a broad range of properties when preparing nominations. Our most recent approved landmark nominations were from the city's Underrepresented Communities report. Preparing nominations is costly, and we're a largely volunteer organization which relies on member dues and donations. Having said that, as we grow, we expect that we'll increase our pace of nominations. In some cases, such as Master Hall, we prepare landmark nominations after we know that a unique building is threatened. This is occasionally unavoidable due to the large number of properties that are eligible for landmark status and our available resources. We hope that in this case, you'll deny the demolition permit for a unique building with affordable apartments that deserves landmark status, which would still allow new development on the rest of the block. Thank you. I'll turn it to the next speaker.
Lynn, your mic is unmuted if you want to go next.
Thank you. I'm Lynn Bjorkman. I've worked in historic preservation planning for both local government and the National Park Service. So why save Master Hall, a 1966 modernist concrete building described as brutalist? Brutalism sounds like a derogatory label, but it comes from the French term for raw or exposed concrete. With its use of concrete, this post-World War II building style emphasized functionality through bold geometric forms. The noted Milwaukee architect Jordan Miller, the designer of Master Hall, was widely recognized for his expressive use of structural concrete. Besides concrete, Miller's design displays other elements that closely relate the building to the brutalist style, including sculptural geometric shapes devoid of ornamentation, repeated modular elements, upper floors raised on concrete columns like stilts, and notably a dramatic, emotionally impactful effect. On Gilman Street, the imposing building attracts attention and interest, enriching the pedestrian experience. Further, Master Hall is unique as a brutalist residential building that forms a close visual and associational link to other important brutalist buildings on the UW campus, such as the Chazen Art Museum. So what are the important benefits of preserving this building? One answer is in the 2012 downtown plan, which recommends that the city maintain the unique, vibrant, and special qualities of Madison's urban landscape. With the demolition of Master Hall, Madison will be missing a significant piece of its mid-century modernist design legacy, one that enriches our urban environment with variety and vitality. The tangible, physical, concrete presence of Master Hall, the design qualities, visual impact, feeling, and historic significance it represents cannot be reproduced by an interpretive exhibit. I urge the commission to deny the demolition request. Thank you.
Thanks. Yep, Jean, I can see you're unmuted.
Hi. Following Madison City Ordinance 28185, in the interest of the prosperity and welfare of the people, this commission is tasked with the careful consideration of requests to demo 2 apartments deemed Category A historic value. Though these demo applications came to your attention because the structures have architectural significance, I'm asking you to also recognize them by another of their key features, and that's their relative affordability in this Madison market. I'd say these properties are great examples of naturally occurring affordable housing, or NOAH, and in fact represent that missing middle part of our housing stock that we've all read about. To be fair, I wasn't able to pin down exact rents, but I'm comfortable saying these properties offer efficiencies and 1-bedrooms that range between $750 and $1,300 a month. If these buildings come down, Madison will have lost nearly 200 irreplaceable NOAH units. To echo a fellow trust member, demolishing buildings that provide rents at $1,300 a month is unconscionable. Thanks for your dedication to the city and for keeping the value of these NOAH properties in mind as you safeguard the welfare and the prosperity of Madison residents.
Thanks. Kurt, you have about 40 seconds left if you want to wrap up.
Okay. All right. A few sentences first. The trust is convinced that the historic value of Master Hall outweighs any other general interest to accommodate growth of Madison's population and built environment. One of the conditions in the introductory statement of purpose, we think it's obvious that you must simply deny the demolition permit now. But if you have any doubts, we propose that you defer consideration of the permit application until the Landmarks Commission and its staff that designated exits.
Thanks, Kurt. If you guys could hang around, there may be questions for you after the other speakers. Thank you.
Okay. I believe the rest of our registration list includes Nick Smith of District 12, registered in support and not wishing to speak, and Ethan Dickler, registered in opposition. I'm sorry, Ethan Dickler is registered in opposition and wishing to speak. Ethan, if you're here. Here we go.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Thanks. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity to speak today. My name is Ethan Dickler, and I've been a resident of Madison for the past 9 years. Of those 9 years, I lived in Master Hall for 2 years on the 3rd and 5th floor, and in the Stratford Atrium in the basement for 1 year as a student at UW-Madison. I now work for the state government downtown. In my 9 years in Madison, I've lived in 8 different apartment buildings and houses. This has been by choice as I enjoy haunting these different spaces around Madison. Places I've lived include cheap cinder block cubes on Old University that should absolutely be torn down, a Tudor-style brick mansion named Twin Gables on Kendall Avenue that I loved, a rundown house on West Dayton that I hated, a newly constructed apartment building now called the Eastern on East Washington, and I currently live in the historic Cardinal apartment building on East Wilson Street. I am not an expert in historic preservation. I cannot speak to the character of either structures being discussed about being torn down. But I do know about the apartment situation on the Isthmus, and both of these apartments mean so much to me. I don't think anyone chooses to live in Master Hall personally. It is a place that is there for people who need it. My rent when I lived there was $750. When I lived on the 3rd floor, my rent on the 5th floor was $850. I'm sure they're a little higher now because of, rent increases. But they both were there for me when I couldn't find roommates and I didn't know where else to live and I was a student. And, it's funny. When I lived in the Stratford atrium, I was in the basement and I remember being woken with 5 other guys during COVID. And I remember being woken up at night because someone was peeing on my window. It looked out at the dumpsters, and it was one of those places where it was kind of dilapidated inside, and obviously the management company didn't care that much, but there was something so gritty about it, something so bohemian. Living in both of those places, I felt like, the way my dad's from New York City.
Ethan, you have about 30 seconds just to manage your time.
Thank you. He lived in Greenwich Village in the 60s, and the way he described the culture and the vibe is exactly the spirit of West Gilman. And I don't know, tearing down both these buildings, that they are the spirit of Madison that I know and love, and it would be a real shame. But thank you for your time, and I appreciate this.
Thanks, Ethan.
Okay, confirming, Chair, that is in fact the end of the registration list.
Great. Great. Super. All right. We hearing from the registrants. Do any commissioners have questions for any of our registrants on items 4 through 9? Alderfield, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. For the applicant team. I wanted to thank them for their presentation and ask a little more about some of the affordable units that they're proposing. The 10% is the figure that I heard a couple of times in that presentation. John, do we yet know how many beds that's going to turn out to be 10%?
Yeah, it would be a minimum 99 beds.
Okay. And then have you all entered into one of these land use restriction agreements with the city for affordable housing yet, or will this be your first one?
I'll let Jim speak to that. Jim, if you don't mind.
Thank you. And thank you for the question, Alder. John's correct. It should be about at minimum 99 beds. We have not entered into an agreement yet. We plan to under this one, utilizing the ordinance the city passed related to the height amendment. And those beds should be, from our understanding, about a 40% discount to market rates. So it'll be a very significant discount.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how these go whenever they're a part of a project. Thank you. That's all for now.
Thanks, Alderfield. Other questions for registrants? Commissioner Solheim, thanks.
Thank you. In terms of the demolition, there was a lot of comments about the standards, including standard 2, which refers to deteriorated condition. I did not see in all of the materials any sort of a report related to condition of the buildings. There was a legacy architecture provides sort of a historical overview, but it is very common for us to get reports related to, structural conditions of the property, a lot of photos. Did I miss something, or did you do any of that?
I think that we included some photos, so there are limited photos of the interior. And then there's quite a few photos of the exterior, but there's no report. We didn't go through and do a complete structural analysis of the interior or the exterior.
Okay. There's another project tonight that even had like a list of, repairs that are outstanding or in conditions of the building. You don't have any of that information compiled?
No, we have not done a full detailed analysis of that. We know on 433 and going through it that it needs a vast amount of work on the interior and that it's almost all been completely altered from the original building. But most of those alterations, as one of the speakers has mentioned, have just fallen into disrepair over time. And that we know that several of the elements on the front facade, when we were looking at saving it, would need a tremendous amount of work. So most of our focus was done on trying to save the front facade. And the conclusion really was that it needed to be taken down and then rebuilt up again to bring it back to the condition that it should be in if it was to be left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually more interested in 415. Given some of the materials, it seemed like that potentially retained integrity more than 433. But if that information is not available, it is what it is. That's all for right now. Thank you.
It appears the chair may be not in the meeting. Looks frozen.
I think her video is frozen. Commissioner Solheim, would you like to chair for a moment while we get her back?
Yes, I will attempt to step in here. I'm also on my phone because my internet at home is a little iffy, so bear with me here. Do we have any other questions for the applicants or for any of the speakers? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Oh, there, Commissioner Heck.
Thanks. This may be for somebody that was in the group that spoke for the Madison Trust for Historic Preservation. I'm not sure who will want to answer it, but I read and have heard about the points about historical significance about Masters Hall, and also the report from Legacy that was done by the development team or at the behest of the development team. And I wondered if you could give any insights into why this building is perhaps more important than other brutalist buildings. I know the majority are on campus. Is there something in particular about this building other than its history that makes it important to save?
This is Kurt Steggy. I'll start answering that and see what happens. This building is, as far as I'm concerned, one of a kind. I have not seen anything like it in Wisconsin, and I haven't seen any photograph of a brutalist building that is comparable around the world. It is a unique building. Its scale is vastly different from the brutalist buildings that are on campus. Those are behemoths. They impose on people. They live up to the title, brutalist. This does not. This is okay, it fits the general category, but it is a very distinct building. And if you walk down that street, West Gilman, your attention is drawn to it. It's something that people talk about and people recognize. And as we know, the downtown plan says keep these buildings. It's consistent with the preservation provision in that plan, and it's inconsistent with the provision for building large buildings, which are not supposed to be built in this location, which is within the State Street district. It's in that district. It's residential. It's not commercial. If this was commercial, that's a different story. But this is really a primarily residential development. And it's not, the Master Hall only occupies a portion of the real estate covered by this development. And the 16-story portion of the development, which was massive and is hardly pedestrian friendly, is in the other, is further away from State Street, rather than almost on the doorstep. And if anyone else on the trust has a comment in that regard, feel free to jump in.
Yes, this is John Rowling. I'd like to speak a little bit. Kurt mentioned the other brutalist buildings in Madison are pretty much on the UW campus. And our preservation planner and the Landmarks Commission in particular have already noted that the Master Hall is the only known residential structure of its kind in Madison. It is unique in that regard. As Kurt mentioned, well, he'd never seen anything else in the world like that. I have. Moshe Safdie's habitat at the Montreal 67 site, now a World Heritage Site, uses the same stacked cubes that Jordan Miller used here on Master Hall. Well, I like the association between something in Madison, Wisconsin, and something that is a World Heritage Site. I think that's pretty unique, and certainly something we should save.
Okay. Thanks, John. Did you have something else to add?
Well, I could also go on beyond into the Landmark Commission also noted the social history aspect of Master Hall. It's an interesting story about the transition from private dorms to private apartments at a moment of transition in the characterization of student life at UW from the silent generation and women dorm roles to the protest generation and women's lib. And Master Hall experienced that over the course of the 1960s into the early 1970s. And it's a particular exemplar of that change in the mores that were underlying how housing patterns were arranged. I think it's a fascinating story, and it's one that Master Hall illustrates beautifully. Thank you.
Thanks. I think that answers my questions for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks.
All right. Oh,
Nicole, I'm back.
Oh, you're back. You're back.
Great. Thank
Okay.
you. At least you got your question in before I froze up. I do see Alder Okowitz. If I said that right, or wrong, you can correct me, please.
Correct. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, my question is also for John. Are you there, John?
I'm here. Yes.
Okay. I want to make sure. Would you describe, there's a building on the corner of Henry and Gilman, 501 North Henry. Would you describe that building as brutalist? It displays a lot of the same features as Master Hall.
It's modernist. I wouldn't describe it as brutalist. Brutalism is one of the variants of modernism.
Okay.
And in that regard, I believe it is unique.
Okay. But you wouldn't describe it as brutalism. It doesn't display like a formal legibility of plan, clear exhibition of structure. It explicitly states where the staircases are as part of the function of the building. The structure is clearly exposed. It uses raw concrete as the primary facing material. And it additionally displays some of the elements that you noted in your landmarks application, such as the brise soleil, where the porch displays The porch for each unit is also functionally a brise soleil for the unit below it, explaining or showing a form follows function sort of thing that I would say exemplifies brutalism.
Well, I thank you. I thank you very much for reading my nomination and understanding it even better. But I would say this: that the building you're talking about at Henry is sort of a plain vanilla relative to a masterwork.
Okay, thank you.
Alder. Alder Glenn.
Hi, I have a question also for the historic team. As someone who loves history and buildings and totally hears this, but also just kind of some identity questions. With it being built when it was, and we often have to talk about history, we have to talk about all of history. Sometimes buildings and statues and things can be built before civil rights. And so some of their historic things can look different to others. What do we know about any rentals or who was allowed to live or when this building was built in the historical time of prior to civil rights?
Well,
looking up what I have found so far, there's some huge chances that there was some restrictions with the building. So I just am wondering.
Kurt Stege here. Let me just say that if you're thinking about the buildings that are currently local landmarks in Madison, the youngest of those buildings, there are two of them built in the 1940s, both designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. Otherwise, all the buildings are in, I think, the 20s or early, 1920s or earlier. And the standard for becoming a landmark is typically a 50-year standard. Master Hall just hit that 50-year period in 2016. Yes, there is history that's embedded in every building. This is not a building associated with a historical figure, and there are quite a few of those around the country. But you can't, this is not in the category of Monticello, James Madison's plantation, George Washington's plantation, or all the plantations, which do have a history that is, for me, very instructive, but it casts some pall on the building.
Thank you.
Are there questions for registrants? If there are none, I would now close our public hearing on items 4 through 9 and ask the commission if you have questions for staff. We have Chris and Megan available. Alder Yeager, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. One more time, could someone from staff please comment on the advisory status of the Landmarks Commission in relationship to the Plan Commission, and potentially the authority of the Plan Commission to find that a determination of the Landmarks Commission may be correct or incorrect.
Sure, Alder, I can start with that. So since the demolition ordinance was updated in January of 2025, the process has been clarified that the Landmarks Commission is vested with the responsibility for reviewing all proposals for demolition and for making a determination of their historic value. That historic value is based on 3 categories, as we call them. Category C, which is a finding of no known historic value. Category B, which is a finding of historic value. And then category A, which is the highest finding of historic value, the highest significance for historic value. After the Landmarks Commission's review for historic value, their determination about that value is recommended to you. So in this case, that recommendation of an A finding for 2 of these buildings and a B finding for 1 of them has been forwarded for your consideration as you review the request for demolition. In the case of the request for the demolition themselves, as Chris noted in his staff report, you will compare the information that you have before you related to the historic value and any other information that the Landmarks Commission or the Plan Commission has received related to the buildings themselves. You will consider that and you will make a determination as to whether you can find the standards met to approve the demolition. Those standards are in 28-185-6, subsection C for your standards of approval. So the commission is not making a determination about the significance, the historic significance itself. Let me start over and make sure I said that right. The Plan Commission is not making a determination about the historic significance of these buildings. The Landmarks Commission has already done that for you. They've provided you with their advisory opinion about the value of these structures that are proposed for demolition. So it's your responsibility to consider the standards then for whether they can be approved for demolition. Those include considering whether the demolition of the building will aid in the implementation of adopted plans and the purpose statement of the ordinance. You can consider how the demolition and redevelopment relates to those adopted plans in your consideration. The other standard of approval is that you can find that there are factors that outweigh the public interest in preserving historic resources. And that can include things like, it does not have to include, but it may include things like the condition of the building, if the building has historic value, if that value has been so altered that it cannot convey its historical associations, or if there is known information about structural, fire hazards, unlawful use of the property, etc. Again, those are some examples of factors you may consider and are not the only ones that you may consider. So really, it's your job to determine based on what you know and what's been recommended to you, whether you can find those 2 things are met.
Thank you, Director Toll. That answers my question.
Thanks, Alder Garrett. That may be the key question. Other questions for staff? Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. This is probably for Megan. Chris may have some input too. I look at the standards of approval that were just mentioned, and really I see only standard 1 as being important in this situation. At least that's the way I read it. And I really see it's about the plans. It's kind of the downtown plans verbiage, which gives a lot of wiggle room versus maybe even other parts of the downtown plan that have wiggle room in it. For instance, the fact that the height map is so large in this area, and also our comprehensive plans, goals, and strategies, it's really tough to weigh those in this situation. But do you agree that that's really the gist of this argument here, that the other standard is not really applicable. It's about the various goals and strategies of those plans?
I mean, ultimately, you do have to consider both as part of your consideration, but I think that probably the piece that you've identified with standard one as identifying the plan recommendations is one of the bigger ones here for you. We've talked about the fact that our plans and policies generally support overall growth and development in the city through redevelopment, infill development, in particular for the downtown, and also acknowledges that in many cases, the existing buildings that we have in our community help contribute to the sense of character and identity of our community and of downtown in particular. We do not have policies in those plans that specifically say for this site, this is what you should do in terms of weighing those factors. It does provide higher level guidance like you've acknowledged with the height map or other places where we have policies that indicate, for example, taller buildings should be set back a bit further from State Street. We've clearly identified that State Street is an important corridor in that plan, but we don't have specific policies that tell you how to navigate this conflict. So you have to weigh the broader picture of those goals, which are both for growth and for preservation of some iconic buildings.
Thank you. I'll think about that.
Sorry, I dropped out for that. I think the storm may be also making this connection difficult from the Get-On House. So I'm sorry about that. Commissioner Solheim, I see your hand is raised.
That's why I'm on my phone. I had the same internet issues today.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question on standard 2, actually. I do wish we had more of a building condition report to help kind of review this standard. I know that is not a requirement and that a finding may include that, but it is not limited to that. So that is helpful. There's some language in the staff report about, finding that there are factors that outweigh the public interest in preserving it. And there's a mention of, the additional housing units, including affordable housing units. And, I think we've been trained a lot about when we can and cannot take affordability into account for things like land use approvals, conditional use. The presence or lack thereof of affordability is not a standard we could take into our decisions. But it seems like here, because this is more related to demolition and public interest, that there is an opportunity to weigh that. Am I understanding that correctly?
Chris, were you going to handle this one or do you want me to?
I was just going to explain that the LURA is an example of where the applicant is voluntarily entering into an agreement versus it being exacted like a quid pro quo, in the sense that it's a different, kind of a different structure.
I would just add to that, yes, Commissioner Solheim, that the commission does not have the purview to make specific conditions on a project or to approve or deny a conditional use, for example, on whether or not a project includes affordable units because of its preemptions under state law. But that is a factor you may consider when you are weighing whether or not there are factors that outweigh the public interest in preservation here.
Okay.
I wonder if we're ready to try a motion on this. I will say that the way that the agenda is ordered is not quite logically correct. And so what I would like to do is start with item 6, which is the first demo. Let me split my screen and get back to that. So we would handle the demolition items first, items 6, 7, and 8, then go back to 4, 5, and then 9 as we move through this group of items on the agenda. Yeah. Agenda back.
Chair, as we're getting into this segment, just to make sure your connection stays as strong as possible, I know we typically like to have videos on, but I may suggest turning off your video just to maintain your connection.
Yeah, I will try that. Sorry about that. All right. So could everybody hear could you hear when I was talking about the order of, okay, thanks. So I would like to start with a motion on 6, which is Legistar 91233, the consideration of a demolition permit for 411 West Gilman Street. So I think that's maybe that's the one that got a B from the Landmarks Commission, so that might be an easier one to start with anyway. But if anyone from the commission is thinking about making a motion. Commissioner Heck, thank you.
Sure, I'll give this a try. I will move that Plan Commission approve the demolition permit to demolish the commercial building at 411 West Gilman, and that the standards of approval are met. And I'll add, subject to any conditions in the staff report and discussion in the staff report, if there are any that are pertinent.
Chair Gnom, are you available? I think we may have lost the chair again. Commissioner Solheim, if you are able to step in.
All right. Oh,
I did come back, but Nicole, if you will you do this motion, and I'm just going to reboot my machine entirely and try to jump back in and see if that helps. So I'll try to back in a couple minutes.
absolutely. Put me in, coach. All right. We have a motion and a second on the table. Thank you, Alderfield. Any discussion, further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, are there any opposed to unanimous consent? Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. All right, and then we'll move on to item 7, Legistar 91234, 415 West Gilman Street. Do we have a motion for that? Commissioner Heck.
Thanks. I'll take a stab at this. I'm going to move that Plan Commission place on file the demolition permit for 415 West Gilman, and that due to the fact that the standards are not met, that I think I can discuss if I get a second.
Absolutely. Do we have a second to Commissioner Heck's motion? Commissioner McCahill, thank you for the second. Commissioner Heck, would you like to elaborate?
Just a bit. I mean, I think in our questioning, I think the reasoning is not 100% clear, but I think that it's approval standard 1 in the demolition standards, and I find the verbiage, particularly in the downtown plan, to be applicable in this situation. I can't even remember in all the materials that we received about this, but I do think that this particular area is in the State Street district of downtown, and the language does indicate that it's that the 12-story height map and associated adjacent areas is not a given. They're really meant to be respectful of what's there, and what's there in this situation is Master Hall, and I think that it's an important enough structure and unique enough structure that I'm not convinced that we should demolish it.
Thank you. Alder
Thank you,
Field?
Chair. I'm going to vote against this motion, and I'll be prepared with an alternate motion if this one fails. On standard one in particular, it's abundantly clear to me that this is exactly where our plans contemplate more people living. Even looking at the succession of the increasing height limit as you move away from State Street, it's evident that our plans envision bigger buildings here, and that is consistent with the proposal that this applicant has applied for. And I suppose I am hoping that the Plan Commission does take the limits in our ordinances as given, and that we're willing to consider projects that propose to meet them. This has the best bus service in the city. It is walkable already and within walking distance of many amenities that people want to live by. Students and young professionals who commute outside of the downtown. And if a developer wants to spend their money to put the housing here and are otherwise proposing to meet our height limits, I support that we let them do so. And I think the public has an overwhelming interest in allowing denser housing here. It's very exciting that this project proposes perhaps around 100 beds of affordable housing, as they'll be required to do if they want to use the parameters in the height-based parameters in our ordinances. But that's not the only factor that I'm considering in my support. I think that the density itself is what justifies this building. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Should I stay? Let's see. Let's go ahead. Okay. Commissioner McCahill.
I think Alder Olgovich had his hand up first. Okay.
It's generally our
Okay.
policy to do commissioners first. Nothing against you, Alder. Just trying to follow.
I am somewhat more inclined to support this motion, but not for the reasons that Commissioner Heck outlined. I'm not really having trouble with substandard 1. So I am curious to hear how anyone else feels substandard 2 is met. It seems to me like the development team put a lot of thought into the property at 433 and maybe didn't anticipate the historical value of 415. So that's where my thinking is right now.
Thank you, Commissioner. Alder
Thank you,
Okowitz.
Chair. Chair Pro Tempore. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, this development is in my district, which is why I'm here to speak tonight. I met with John last week and talked with him about his landmarks application. Specifically, I'm focused on 415, not 433 because of the landmarks application. I am here to speak in support of the project generally and the demolition. I think Alder Field said it much better than I could, that this is a place where people want to live. The impact of the building on this site with regards to State Street is reflected in how our height maps and our zoning requirements require step downs towards State Street. I'm generally not concerned about that. I think the controversial issue here is the historic value of Master Hall, and specifically with regards to substandard 2 of the demolition ordinances. I think that you should read John's application if you haven't already. It's interesting. But 2 things stick out to me. He's nominating it because of 2 things. One is the historic significance with regards to the culture of Madison for its use as a dormitory, and the second is its architectural significance as a brutalist building. I like brutalist buildings. I have an atlas of brutalist architecture, which I have been reading from through this. I'm going to Montreal soon. I'm going to be visiting Habitat 67, which John mentioned in his comments. And I actually do kind of like this building. I don't think architecturally it's a showstopper. I think it is similar in a lot of features to the building that I pointed out at 501 Henry Street on Gilman. And I don't think that it is truly a landmark building. For the second part of the landmark application, it is somewhat significant in the role that it played in with regards to the transition from the campus requiring students to live on campus or in private dormitories to expanding that and changing them to the rules that we have now where students can live anywhere in the city. I think a lot of that could be captured in storytelling, including in this developer's display. And I'm not convinced that saving this building would help tell that story better. We have other buildings that also tell it, but also it's frankly a story that doesn't quite need a building. My last point that I want to make, and specifically why I brought up 501 North Henry Street, is it's in the Mansion Hill Local Historic District, but it is not a contributing building. It was built in, I don't know the exact date, but the 60s or 70s. And it is in part because of brutalist modernist buildings like that we created the local historic districts and in fact the entire landmarking process locally. There were a lot of national things going on as well. But my point is more that I'm interested in historic buildings, but also I'm interested in the processes which brought about historic buildings. And 501 North Henry Street is a building that would not have existed today if we had the landmarking process. But today, I think, is actually a very unique and architecturally impressive structure. You know, we could go back and forth. I'm not an architecture critic. I would call it brutalism. But it's not a building that would exist today. All of the things that we're doing right now with regards to historic preservation and preserving buildings, they are a result of us, our values, our opinions, the conditions of today, and we're trying to build a Madison for tomorrow. So I'm just concerned about preserving Master Hall as an emblem when this is a part of the city that is rapidly changing, and in fact, I think is pretty exemplary of the time period that we're in now. So sorry to get on my soapbox, but thank you.
Thank you. Quick housekeeping question. Should I continue chairing here or pass it over, given that we are mid-motion discussion? I'm fine either way, but just wanted to check.
I thought Megan's the secretary. My thought is that it would be better for you to carry the motion from start to finish, though.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Bazin.
I have a question that I think is related to some of what Chris mentioned and other folks have mentioned, but it's actually a question for staff. I think that might help me understand some of the conversation. Is it appropriate to ask that right now? Or do I need to wait on that?
That's fine by me. If someone wants to raise their hand to object to that, please do so now. Proceed with your question.
Thank you. I know earlier Commissioner Solheim had asked the planning team if they had any report on the condition of 415. At the time they said they did not. I'm wondering if there's a process or a way in which we could allow them the time or space to be able to provide a report on the condition of that building.
If the commission felt that a report on the condition of the building were essential to its decision-making on the standards and the ordinance, you could make a motion to refer with a specific request for what information you're seeking.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other, I guess I can ask if there's any other questions since we're in allowing that, or any other comments, discussion on the motion? Alder Uyghur.
Thank you, Deputy Chair, whatever the proper term is. I think we'll find that there is no serious structural impediment for a longer life for the building we're talking about right now. I do think that Olderfield's comments on the applicability of the plans and standard number 1 is the overwhelming issue here, and persuasive, at least as far as I'm concerned, and I'll be voting against the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Any further discussion? Commissioner Sanders.
Thank you. I just feel I'll get a hand on the ball here since I think everyone's kind of spoken up, but I am similarly struggling with standard 2. I appreciate the thorough reporting that everyone's provided to support the historical significance of this building. And to kind of continue Commissioner Solheim's questioning from earlier, I'm just struggling to see that it does meet the criteria in standard 2 about it being deteriorated or anything like that. So I suppose I would be interested if the development team can provide a report on the current status of 415. That might help us to better understand. I recognize that's not the current motion in question, but I would be willing to raise that as an alternative if this one does not go through.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further discussion? If not, we'll go to a roll call vote.
Okay. As a matter of procedure here, I'm just going to note that because Commissioner Solheim is chairing the meeting right now, you are considered the chair of the meeting. Our chair, Ghanem, who is not chairing the meeting, is considered a commissioner. So for the purposes of voting, the roles are reversed a little bit here. So as I read the roll, just keep that in mind.
Megan, just because I wasn't connected when Alder Heck made his motion, could you,
repeat the motion?
Could you just repeat the motion?
Nicole, would you like to do that, or do you want me to do that?
If you would like to repeat it, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you, Megan.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is a motion by Commissioner Heck and seconded by Commissioner McCahill to place the demolition of 415 West Gilman on file due to not finding the standards met. So a vote in favor would be to place it on file, and a vote opposed would not be for that.
Thanks.
So beginning with Alder Field.
No.
Alder Glenn?
No.
Alder Uyghur?
No.
Commissioner Bazine?
No.
Commissioner Heck?
Yes.
Commissioner McCahill?
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders?
No.
Commissioner Solheim? I'm sorry, we're going to skip over that. Chair Ghanem?
No.
Okay. The 5 votes are needed to pass a motion, so the motion fails.
Thank you, Megan. Alder Field.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the Plan Commission find the standards met for a demolition permit at 415 West Gilman Street and approve item 7 on the agenda.
We have a second from Alder Glenn, looks like. Alder Field, would you like to expand on that at all?
Yes, briefly. So in addition to the comments that I shared before on the previous motion, I wanted to come back to the question of standard 2, which I didn't address. There are factors that are found to outweigh the public interest in preserving historic resources. And then there's a list of may include but is not limited to. I believe this is where the public interest is where we can consider the possibility of an applicant voluntarily participating in our policy that allows for a land use restriction to ensure affordable housing at some level in exchange for exceeding our height limits. And so I think I just wanted to highlight that it's a pretty unique opportunity to guarantee permanent affordable housing for students in the downtown, that's a really big deal. And we don't see traditional tax credit properties to guarantee sub-market rate housing for students because of the tax credit system. The program is not built to suit students as the tenants. This is kind of our strategy now for finding affordable housing in new housing stock in the rapidly changing downtown. And so I am excited to see these opportunities where we can find them. And for me, that helps to meet standard 2, in addition to my previous comments about the other standards. In summary, I find the standards met. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'm thinking it probably makes sense to do a roll call vote here as well.
Okay.
Presuming.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm happy to call the roll if you're ready. Sorry for interrupting.
Yes. No, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. So this is for a motion to approve the demolition and find the standards met. Alder Field.
Aye.
Alder Glenn.
Aye.
Alder Ugair.
Aye.
Commissioner Bazine.
No.
Commissioner Heck.
No.
Commissioner McCahill.
No.
Commissioner Sanders.
No.
All right. And Chair Gnam.
Yes, I would vote yes. But I think that may not be 5.
That is not 5. So that motion fails by not achieving 5 votes in favor.
Okay. We have 2 failed motions. I think there's likely Commissioner Sanders. Go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to move to refer the consideration of the demolition permit to demolish 415 West Gilman Street to a future plan commission meeting. I'm not informed enough to have a good sense of how long it might take for the applicant team to do a study and report on the conditions of the building, but if staff have advice on a good timeline to refer that, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanders. Do we have a second to that motion? Commissioner McCahill with the second. Commissioner Sanders, any further comments on that? I think you covered it pretty well, but I want to give you an opportunity for discussion.
Thank you. I'm still clearly wrestling with this because I think Alder Field made some very good persuasive comments about weighing the public interest as well. But it really felt to me this evening that I just want to make sure that the applicant team has a chance to do their due diligence and address this too and get their perspective. I appreciate that we've gotten a lot of public comment and information about it, but I just feel it would be in the good faith of the developer to just give them that opportunity, seeing that they've tried really hard to incorporate a lot of the architectural themes of 433 into this. So just hoping to get a little bit more context.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanders. I'm going to go quickly to Megan. I see your hand raised.
Commissioner Solheim, I apologize. I'm actually raising a point of order and a procedural issue here that this is my fault when we were conducting the vote on the last item. As chair, since there was a tie vote, you were eligible to vote in order to break that tie. So I believe it would probably procedurally be most appropriate if you would like to reopen that item and finish the voting on that item before we take a vote on this motion.
Yes, good catch. Thank you. We'll reopen the last motion. Does that mean you just need me to vote or decide not to vote, if I recall correctly?
Yes, you need to either vote aye or nay or abstain from voting.
Thank you. I will vote nay, actually.
Okay, so then the motion fails for 5 votes in opposition. Okay, sorry about that, and thank you.
Nope, good catch. All right, we are back to Commissioner Sanders' motion, seconded by Commissioner McCahill to move. It may be appropriate, I suppose, Megan, to maybe just select the next meeting date and the applicant can decide to refer if they need more time. I feel like we usually like to select a date before the motion is finalized.
Yes, I would recommend that so that we can keep this moving. So your next regularly scheduled meeting is April 13th.
Okay.
I support referring it to April 13th.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanders. Okay. I think we are back to a roll call vote then. This might be a record for us in one meeting of roll call votes.
Okay. So again, the motion here is to refer to April 13th with the specific request for the conditions report. Alderfield.
Aye.
Alder Glenn.
Aye.
Alder Ugair.
Aye.
Commissioner Bazine.
Aye.
Commissioner Heck.
Aye.
Commissioner McCahill.
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders.
Aye.
Chair Gnaw. I think I saw an aye. Didn't hear it, but I saw it. Yes. Okay. The motion passes.
Okay. Would it make sense to refer the remaining items then?
So I think the commission can decide. You have another demolition that can be decided on independent of the rest of the project. But I believe in the staff report, we did recommend that you would consider referring the other items based on your discussion of the demolitions.
I think it would be helpful to take the remaining demolition just in case there are comments, additional information requested that arises out of discussing that motion that the development team could also work on. Maybe I should pass this over to Chair Ghanem and she can figure out these hard questions.
Thanks. I do think that rebooting my computer was helpful, so I'm sorry that you got the most complicated motion that we've had in like 6 months. So thank you for taking that. Yeah, so I actually agree for item 8. I'm curious whether the commission is interested in having information about that or interested in approving or placing it on file. So I would open item 8 for perhaps a motion, including a motion to, if we're going to refer item 7 to April 13th, we could also just refer 4, 5, 8, and 9 to April 13th as well. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's start with item 8. Was there a motion on item 8? Which is the demo for 433 West Gilman. Commissioner Solheim, thanks.
Thank you. Since we are moving to the next meeting, I would offer a motion to refer item 8 to the April 13th meeting and request a report for photos, particularly touching on the integrity of the building. There was some reference in the historical report referencing interior integrity and, some things that have been moved over time in terms of, units combined and interior renovations and loss of integrity. And that would be helpful to see in photographic evidence.
Commissioner Sanders, second, thank you. Any further? I think that explanation is sufficient. Is there any discussion on the motion to refer with a request for a condition report for 433 West Gilman? All right, seeing none, we'll call a vote on this item, and I'll start with, is there objection to unanimous approval? I think we may have gotten unanimous on the last vote. So is there objection to unanimous approval for the referral with request for a condition report? All right, seeing none, that will approve the referral of item 8 to the next meeting. And then we will now need to go back to item 4. Which, Megan, can you remind us on item 4? Because I closed that window, sorry.
Item 4 is consideration of rezoning the property from downtown core to urban mixed use.
Yeah. Alderfield, thank you.
I move that the Plan Commission find that standards for rezoning are met and advance Legistar 90916 to the Common Council with a recommendation for approval.
Thanks, Alder Aguirre. Second, thank you. Alderfield, any further commentary?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Okay. Any discussion from the commission? Any objection to unanimous approval for the motion to advance on the rezoning of 411 West Gilman Street? All right, seeing none, item 4 is approved. Let's now move to item 5, which is the conditional use. And that the staff recommendation there, given the actions on the demolition items, would be to refer. Megan, would we want to refer that also to April 13th? Yeah, so I'd be looking for a motion to refer that item. Alderfield, thank you. And Alder Aguirre, thank you. Any objection to unanimous approval for referral of the conditional use application? All right, seeing none, that item is referred. And then we have item 9, which is approval of the certified survey map of the property at 411 to 433 West Gilman Street. And this one, Megan,
This one can be acted upon.
Okay.
An item that the commission is recommending to the council.
Thank you. Yep. Alderfield?
Thanks, Chair. I'll move that the Plan Commission recommend forward Legistar 90618 to the Common Council with a recommendation of approval.
Thanks, Alderfield. Alder Aguirre, second. Thank you. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, any objection to unanimous approval for moving the certified survey map, a recommendation forward? Great, that one will be approved. All right, thanks. Thanks everybody for hanging in. That was a deep discussion, and I think we have one more coming up. So we will move to items 10, 11, and 12, which will be taken together as one public hearing. And Megan, would you mind reading the Legistar items for those?
Okay, Legistar item 10 is, agenda item 10 is Legistar 91459, 5534 Medical Circle, consideration of a demolition permit to demolish a commercial building in District 19. Item 11 is Legistar 91512, 5555 Odana Road and 5534 Medical Circle, Urban Design District 3 and District 19, consideration of a conditional use in the Commercial Corridor Transitional CCT District for dwelling units in a mixed-use building with greater than 60 units and consideration of a conditional use in the CCT district for a building taller than 5 stories and 78 feet, all to allow construction of a 6-story mixed-use building containing approximately 1,300 square feet of commercial and 154 dwelling units adjacent to Odana Road, and a 5-story mixed-use building with 6,450 square feet of commercial space and 73 dwelling units adjacent to Medical Circle. And finally, item 12, Register 91514, approving a certified survey map of property owned by BHP LLC located at 5555 Odana Road and 5534 Medical Circle, also in District 19.
Thanks, Megan. We will start with a staff presentation on this project.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. So I'll skip that. The applicant is seeking approval to construct a 6-story mixed-use building on the north end of the site with 154 units and 1,300 square feet of commercial space, which I understand is kind of retail or service, and a 5-story mixed-use building with 73 units and roughly 6,500 square feet of commercial space, which I understand is going to be a kind of a medical office space on the south side of the site, oriented towards Medical Circle. Overall, staff believe that the proposal can be found to be generally consistent with the comprehensive plan and the West Area Plan, both of which recommend a 6-story community mixed-use development for the northern half of the site along Odana Road, and then up to a 5-story employment use, 5-story building of employment uses on the southern half of the site along Medical Circle. Regarding the CSM to combine the lots, staff believe that the standards of approval for land divisions can be found met, and the CSM can be forwarded with the recognition of approval. Regarding the demolitions, there are 2 proposed. So similar to the previous example, the previous item, there are 2 buildings on the site for 5555 Odana Road. The Landmarks Commission found that that building had no historic value and assigned it as a Category C finding. However, for the office building at 5534 Medical Circle, they made a Category A finding. Again, the most significant finding, quote, for the historic value as a work/product of an architect of note, Marshall Erdman, and because the medical building would be contributing to a potential historic district for Medical Circle. The loss of one of the buildings that currently comprise a potential district would negatively impact the likelihood of creating that historic district in the future, unquote. Considering the recommendation of the Landmarks Commission, the Planning Division, again, cannot definitively conclude that the standards are met. To approve, the Planning Commission would need to find the standards for demolition permits for the building, for the Medical Circle building are met, and would need to identify specific factors that have contributed to that finding. Similarly, with the other item, staff are recommending that you consider the report of the Historic Preservation Planner, the actions of the Landmarks Commission, and the city's adopted plans, all that you have previously done with the previous item. The applicant is requesting 2 conditional uses in the CCT district, one for more than 60 dwelling units in a mixed-use building, and for a building exceeding 5 stories in height. Just one note with that second one about the height, that it only pertains to the building to the north, as it's 6 stories, and due to the changes in grade, there's portion, the southern bit of that northern building that is, I think, seven stories. While staff believe that conditioning standards 1 through 6 and 8 and 11 are applicable, staff believes that Planning Commission can find standards 1, 2, and 6 are met, and then the staff report goes into detail about standards 3, 5, and 8. I'll try to kind of breeze through the recommendations in the report. Standard conditional use standard 4, related to the normal and orderly development. The staff note that the applicant has made several design changes over the kind of the evolution of the project, including adding in nearly as much office and commercial space as is proposed to be demolished at Medical Circle, establishing greater consistency with the intended development of the area. Staff note that there's shared access and parking for adjacent usage within the block that enable the continued use and future redevelopment of those sites in a more substantial and flexible manner than would be possible without the shared vehicular access. I know that was a large element to the building, moving through discussions with staff, that it would allow shared parking, I believe, with the pool to the east. Further related, so with that, staff believe that standard 4 can be found met. Related to standard 5, which deals with the adequate the provision of utilities such as roads, drainage, and circulation. Again, talking about the increased the shared access and the traffic flow, kind of helping to break up the block. Traffic engineering, who I believe Sean Malloy is available or potentially attending currently on the meeting. Anyways, traffic engineering completed a trip generation comparison, like a kind of a TIA study, traffic impact analysis. And they found that the new development would generate at most 150 additional vehicle trips per day, an increase of 10 to 15% over the current condition, or about 1% of the traffic volume segment on Odana Road. Staff note that this increase is for the entire site, which, if developed, would allow vehicular access both from the north and the south, while the current condition of the site only, you can only go north from the northern portion and south from the southern portion. With that, staff believes that standard 5 can be found met. Related to standard 11, which is deals with height, additional height than what is allowed in the district. The condition talks about, the planning commission shall consider recommendations and adopted plans, impact of surrounding properties, including height, mass orientation, shadows in view, architectural quality and amenities, the relationship of the proposed building to adjoining streets, etc. Staff note that again, there's the issue of the height. There's 5 or 6 stories, so it's the building to the south does not require conditional use. I mentioned the plans recommending 6 stories for the northern portion. Staff acknowledged the kind of inconsistency with the southern portion of the northern building falls into the area that is recommended for 5 stories. And as I mentioned, with the grade dropping off, there is it is 7 stories at that point. So careful consideration should be given to the surrounding context and the resulting impacts, as noted kind of in the staff report. There are some other developments that have fallen into kind of a similar situation that have been approved. While staff remains concerned about the precedent of approved height above what is recommended in adopted plans, staff believes that it may be possible for the Planning Commission to find standard 11 met based on contextual considerations and the fact that the majority of the building lies within the community mixed use, the 6-story height recommendation, where it is consistent with the plan recommendations. Let's see. There are, lastly, approval standard 8, which deals with the aesthetics and the building's design. Staff note that note that over the kind of the evolution of discussions with the design team, they have responded to staff's recommendations for changes to the landscaping, general design, building and layout, architectural details, building materials, and staff believes that the proposed better creates a quote environment of sustained aesthetic and desirability as required by the approval standard. And the Urban Design Commission has recommended a number of conditions which are listed in the report. And the plans have been updated to based largely on the feedback that was given about the dog run area shifting away and increasing the landscaping along the southern end of the southern property, but adjacent to the Montessori school that is to the southeast, and a number of other changes of which are outlined in the staff report. So that said, staff believe that if the Plan Commission is able to find all applicable standards of approval met, should approve the requested conditional uses. However, again, as with the previous staff report, if it cannot find the standards for demolition for the building at 5534, staff does not believe that the commission can then also find the conditional use standards met, and should either place the request on file without prejudice or refer the request to a future building to allow the applicant to redesign the site to retain the medical circle building. Lastly, staff have received a large number of written public comments regarding this application that have been attached to the legislative files for this request. Staff note that the applicant submitted a revised letter of intent earlier today, in which they have responded to many of the concerns and speaking to the condition to the very standards for approval, but largely in response to the concerns that have been voiced in the public comments. With that, I will be happy to answer questions after the public hearing.
Thanks, Chris. We do have registrants for this item, so we'll open the public hearing. We do, again, I think we have a pooled time presentation. And then other than the group that has pulled their time, we'll stick to our 3-minute limit for public comments, and we'll give a reminder before, between a minute and half a minute before the time is up. So thank you.
Okay, as I read these names, I will try to read ahead a little bit and let folks know who's coming up in the queue. We do have a long list of speakers for this item. I'll also note that we have a large number of attendees that are here listed under a phone number only. We do need you to try to update that so that we can see your name in order to help facilitate our technical support to get you into the speaking queue. So we'll first hear from the applicant team who have requested to pool their time. This includes Nick Orthman, representing Odana Apartments LLC and Bear Development, Adam Templer, representing Bear Development, and Patrick Terry, representing JLA Architects. You will have 9 total minutes.
Just 1 second on the slides. I'm just having their issues as the theme.
Are you ready?
Thank you.
Okay.
1 second. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Nick, I see you're unmuted. When you're ready to start, you have the floor.
All right. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Well, good evening, commissioners. I'm Nick Orthman, Director of Development with Bear Development, developer for the proposed project here on Odana Road and Medical Circle. As mentioned, we've got Adam Templer, our VP of Development, on the call, as well as design team members from JLA and JSD. So at a high level, what we're looking to do here is 227 units of affordable housing and 7,000 square feet of commercial space. Next slide, please. So this is the project site. It has frontage along both Odana Road and Medical Circle. We're just west of Whitney Way. Currently 2 tax parcels, which we're proposing to combine via a CSM. And as shown on the aerial, we have several neighbors. We've been in contact with each of them. We've had many different designs and updates as we work with staff, neighbors, UDC, and we think we've landed on a design which is consistent with the land use plan and zoning requirements. It really doesn't negatively impact any of the surrounding land uses. Next slide, please. So this is our site plan. It shows building placement, the drive aisle, and parking layout. 2 key pieces of early feedback from staff was the importance of maintaining a continuous drive that connects Odana to Medical Circle and also providing enhanced pedestrian circulation. You can see how that shaped the configuration of both buildings in blue and then the pedestrian paths in red. At the bottom of this slide, which is the east side of Building A, is a shared access drive aisle and parking area, which benefits our site, the West Side Swim Club, and Heritage Square Shopping Center. These agreements will be continued and actually enhanced as part of our development. Building A on Odana Road is 6 stories. Building B on Medical Circle is 5 stories. As mentioned in the staff report, both building heights are consistent with the West Area Plan. The building along Odana is 6 stories and there's a partially exposed basement on the southern end. It's not 7 stories. It's just a condition where the grade drops off a bit as we move south. Additionally, some early feedback from staff was also doing what we can to preserve the 18-inch honey locust tree on Medical Circle. So didn't make its way quite into the drawings, but you can see the snip in the upper right-hand side of the screen where we've reconfigured the access drive to be able to protect that tree long-term. Next slide, please. This is our building design. It shows the elevations and palettes just so you guys can get a feel for what we're proposing. As noted, we did receive additional approval from the Urban Design Commission. The conditions focused mostly on landscaping, as well as some ancillary updates to the east facade. No updates to building footprint or height. Next slide, please. So as part of the project, we're seeking a demolition permit for the building on Medical Circle, which was driven by the Landmark Commission designation. The Landmark Commission meeting, they did confirm that the building itself is not historically significant or architecturally significant, but it could potentially be part of a future historic district along Medical Circle with the adjacent buildings. So we looked at the 2 conditions for demolition approval and feel that we meet both of them. The first of which is that our proposal for the site is consistent with the adopted West Area Plan, which specifically designates these parcels as part of a development corridor. Really, as we see it, there's no way to implement the West Area Plan without demolishing older obsolete buildings. So demolition is really the primary mechanism to achieve the plan's agreed upon goals. Also of note, the West Area Plan does not mention this building or Medical Circle on its list of historic resources or potential historic districts on page 41. Next slide, please. Second condition is that the benefits of our proposal outweigh the benefit in preserving the building. The first thing to point out here is that keeping the building is not economically feasible. The long-term occupant and former owner, Madison Psychiatric, is relocating. They chose to do so before knowing about our proposed redevelopment. And really that was driven by the need for new modern space, but also the significant amount of deferred maintenance in the building. The current owner had a property condition report done, shows significant work that needs to be done just to attempt to extend the building's useful life, which doesn't account for any interior build out or site work that would need to happen to attract a new tenant. It's simply not economically feasible to do anything with the current building. Next slide, please. So, importantly, as part of the demolition, even though we're proposing to remove the existing building, our project does replace the commercial square footage that is lost with new modern space that we think will attract a new user and is consistent with the employment goals for the site. By including the build out of the new space in the comprehensive redevelopment of the site, it does become economically feasible. Next slide, please. Lastly, with respect to the Landmark Commission's designation, we are willing to do a variety of things to document this building in the context of Marshall Erdman and Medical Circle. This includes as-built floor plans, taking high quality interior and exterior photos, and then also looking at doing an installation or exhibit in the lobby that pays homage to Marshall Erdman, Erdman Design, Medical Circle. And we've discussed this directly with Marshall Erdman's son, Tim, who documented this in his public comment. Tim also shared in his public comment that in his opinion, this building and the rest of Medical Circle is not historically relevant. Next slide. So switching gears a bit to the conditional use side of the approval. We started this project by looking towards the city's planning framework, most relevantly being the West Area Plan adopted in 2024. The plan calls for complete neighborhoods, affordable housing near schools, and transitioning this area through redevelopment. The height map on screen here also recommends 6 stories on Odana, 5 stories on Medical Circle, as discussed in the staff report. So from an overall standpoint, we're just trying to implement the plan that the city agreed upon and adopted for this area. Next slide. CCT zoning is the underlying zoning designation for these sites. We're consistent here, and the zoning district really just encourages mixed use and transformation. Next slide. So from an ordinance standpoint, there's 8 relevant standards that we need to meet for the conditional use. We think we meet them all. The staff report covered most of this in detail, but given the public comment and overall dialogue around the project, we felt it was worth further discussing how we meet standards 3 and 11. 3 relates to the impact on neighboring properties, and 11 is for excess height. First, we'd like to emphasize that our project respects and maintains the existing access and parking agreements that were mentioned earlier with the Westside Swim Club and Heritage Square Shopping Center, which has been discussed with both of the property owners in detail. Next slide, please. Second, we've had several discussions with the Montessori school and have made plan updates as a result. Overall, with respect to the school, we think that housing next to schools are very compatible uses and actually positive. The West Area Plan specifically calls for this. And the staff report has cited several examples in Madison where multifamily housing and schools exist successfully adjacent to each other. So as shown here, we addressed 2 major concerns of the school by moving our resident dog run off of the property line into an area that's isolated between our buildings and replaced it with significant landscaping buffer and privacy fence. This provides better safety and privacy for the school. Additionally, our UDC conditions call for review of the privacy fence in detail and additional landscaping along the south property line. So this will be enhanced and reviewed further. Next slide, please. This is just the progression that shows the before and after before we move the dog park. Next slide, please. This is the south elevation of the building A, which is, as mentioned before, 6 stories. And we reviewed the impact of this in detail.
You have about 30 seconds left just to plan your time.
Okay, we thought this was good context for the discussion. The 6th floor, it aligns with the West Area Plan, and it creates an additional 29 units of affordable housing. We don't think that the move from 5 floors to 6 floors materially impacts how the site is experienced. And building A doesn't have any shadow impact on the school, regardless of how tall it is, because it's situated north of the school. Next slide, please.
Nick, if you could wrap up, there may be time for questions for your team later, but yeah. Okay.
Certainly. Yeah, just really quickly, these are the shadow studies that show, limited to no impacts on the neighbors. And specifically, the marginal difference between 5 stories and 6 stories is essentially non-existent. So we think that the 6th floor is totally compatible with this location. So I'll wrap it up. In summary, we think we're just trying to implement the city's agreed upon planning goals for the site, and we meet the vision of the plan, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we're going to hear from Stacy Brunner, who is also with the applicant team. BHP LLC, registered in support and wishing to speak. After Stacy, we're going to hear from Diana Wang and then from Todd Dale, if you can be prepared.
Awesome.
Stacy, you're unmuted. Yep, perfect. We can. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Stacy Brunner. I'm a principal member of BPH LLC, the current ownership group for 5534 Medical Circle. Speaking tonight in support of the approval of a demolition permit at the subject property. with my time, I'd like to just briefly highlight a few points regarding the potential historic designation of said property. First and foremost, the building has already become functionally obsolete. The long-term owner and current tenant, Madison Psychiatric Associates, is definitely leaving. Their decision to vacate was made long before any development plans were in discussion. MPA originally owned and has occupied the building for decades. They actually made the decision to sell the property to our group November of 2024 because the building no longer worked for their operational needs. The layout, the infrastructure, the overall functionality they just don't meet the modern standards for what MPA needed to function properly. The vacancy that's coming is not speculative. They're for sure leaving, and it has not been created by talks of development. It's happening because the building itself no longer meets the needs of the tenant who called it home for over 40 years. In addition, the building is frankly deteriorating, and it would be extremely costly to rehabilitate. To better understand the condition of the exterior, we hired an established contractor to complete an objective review of the roof, siding, and exterior envelope. That report, which is included with our public comments along with photos, estimates that it would cost over $250,000 just to repair the exterior of the building while maintaining it in its current form. That number doesn't include the failing parking lot, the large landscaping and tree removal costs, or the numerous interior issues identified internally by Madison Psychiatric Associates, which they, as Nick had mentioned, they submitted via public comment. When you combine all of these costs, it becomes extremely difficult to see a path where this building could realistically be rehabbed and leased in a way that makes economic sense. Lastly, we've already seen what can happen with similar properties on Medical Circle. Another Erdman building at 5520, which is very similar in age and architecture, has remained largely vacant for well over a decade. It reflects the reality that these types of buildings are difficult to repurpose under modern codes or operational needs. My concern is that a historic designation at 5534 could lead to a similar outcome. That would be long-term vacancy and actually underutilization rather than meaningful preservation. I respectfully ask that the commission not designate 5534 Medical Circle as historic and that the demolition permit be approved. I thank you all for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Diana Wang, registered in opposition and wishing to speak. After that is Todd Dale and then Aaron Katz.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Welcome. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Diana Wong. I am a board member and parent at Montessori Children's House. For 60 years, MCH has been a cornerstone of the Madison community, a year-round anchor serving children from age 18 months through 11, including a summer program that brings our alumni back year after year. This fall is a personal milestone for me. My eldest daughter will graduate and my youngest will finally start his first year. He has been visiting this school since the week he was born. However, if this project is approved as proposed, the 24-month construction window will cover the entirety of my son's preschool career. For him and every child in his cohort, school will be defined by jackhammers, dust, and diesel exhaust. MCH is uniquely vulnerable because the Beltline sits immediately to our south. Placing a 6-story U-shaped massing to our north and west creates a pollution pocket. We are concerned this will act as an acoustic mirror, reflecting highway noise back onto the playground, and a wind block that traps PM 2.5 particulate matter. Staff comparisons to other schools are a false equivalency. Those schools sit on open grids, not pinned against a major highway. We require a CFD airflow model and acoustic impact report. We cannot risk trapping toxic air where children, some as young as 18 months, spend their entire day. We specifically asked the commission to decouple the parcels. The development at 5534 Medical Circle should remain a separate parcel that matches the human scale professional buildings of the street. Crucially, decoupling eliminates the need for a through road around the playground. This road would invite shortcut traffic onto our narrow street, endangering children during drop-off. By keeping these parcels separate, we maintain the safe traffic patterns that have protected our students for decades. Furthermore, we ask that the footprint of 5555 Adana be modified to match the existing footprint of the neighboring 5577 Adana building. This, combined with a mandatory 15-foot step back at the 3rd story, is essential to preserve the sky and prevent a sheer vertical wall from looming over our playground. If we are building for the future, let's build for families. We request that 5534 Medical Circle prioritize 2 and 3 bedroom units. Finally, we require a formal construction parking plan and a developer-funded mitigation fund to cover environmental improvements or temporary relocation. A child's entire preschool experience should not be treated as collateral damage for a development project. Madison's comprehensive plan prioritizes access to quality childcare. After 60 years of serving the city, MCH deserves a neighbor that respects its existence. Please refer this item until the developer proves this won't destroy the safety of our children's environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we will hear from Todd Dale, district unknown from Verona, Wisconsin, registered in opposition and wishing to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Thanks. Welcome.
Great, thank you. Hi, my name is Todd Dale. I'm a parent at Montessori Children's House. One of the most important decisions we make as parents is where our children go to school, especially in those first years. A child's brain reaches 90% of its adult size by age 5. These are the foundational years for the emotional regulation and life skills that will carry them through the rest of their lives. When we chose MCH, we did so after touring 5 different schools. It was a decision we knew with absolute certainty was right for our family, and very few of those are known as parents. Seeing my daughter grow there over the last 3 years, seeing the person she's becoming has been incredible. It fills me with sadness to know that if this construction goes through, her little brother won't get that same experience. He starts this fall. Because he would be attending for 3 years, this construction would cover the majority of his time there. I hate the fact that his formative years may be defined by school relocations, surprise closures, or unsafe conditions instead of a peaceful place to learn. I understand we aren't literally tearing a school down today, but we are deciding its viability. A nonprofit school cannot absorb a loss in enrollment because parents feel a playground is no longer private, sunny, or safe. MCH has been a core partner in raising Madison's children for 60 years. We shouldn't let this project be its death knell. I'm also deeply concerned about this project using suburban mixed-use designation as a loophole to shoehorn a high-density residential building into a commercial zone where it simply does not fit. By bypassing the standard rezoning process, the developer is avoiding the scrutiny of good neighbor requirements that a project of this scale should trigger. This isn't integrated neighborhood planning. It is an opportunistic use of a code that places a massive residential wall directly against a one-story preschool playground. My heart says, please don't do this. There's no way this happens without disrupting these children. But if this construction must move forward, I am pleading with you to take every effort to minimize the impact. We need a plan that ensures the school's long-term survival. If the design cannot be changed to protect the children's privacy and air quality, and if safe day-to-day operations cannot be guaranteed, then a supported relocation must be part of the plan. We cannot leave these families stranded. I know more housing is generally a good thing for our city. Let's make sure we consider the collateral damage. I just want my son to get the same wonderful, valuable experience his big sister had and all the kids of the MCH community. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
Okay, our next speaker is Aaron Katz of District 11, registered in opposition and wishing to speak. After Aaron, we'll have Margaret Porco and then Mitch Olson.
Hello, is my microphone working?
It is. Welcome.
Hello, thank you, Chair, Director, Commissioners, and Alders. I'd like to bring to your attention the pattern of dismissal of safety concerns that are being raised by the community here regarding this development. We're being sold that the impact of introducing commercial space right next to the preschool is minimal, that the impact of 227 new apartments jammed in on an already suffocating, congested set of roads in that Odana-Whitney Beltline area, anyone who works there knows, will be minimal. Traffic engineering said 10% increase. I would like to see the report on that. Impact of a 6-story tall building overshadowing the kids' playground, minimal. Impact of construction, minimal. Air quality concerns, minimal concern. Noise pollution, minimal concerns. Impact of the balconies, that would be like looking over the playground, facing the playground where children are playing, that could be potentially occupied by registered sex offenders. Don't worry, they'll put up a cheap 6-foot vinyl fence. this does not fit into the space. It doesn't fit into the neighborhood. It violates standard 3. I thought Todd's comments just now did a really good job highlighting that. It neither addresses the affordable housing situation that we have here in Madison. I will have you look at the applicant's own slides showcasing brand new German cars in all of the parking lots spaces. So, you know, $100,000, $200,000 cars for a so-called affordable housing area. It doesn't play nice with the incredibly important childcare facility whose sole request is don't harm the kids. So why would anyone be in support of this? Well, financial gain awaits some of the people who are in support of this project. The money funding this is public. Our tax dollars go funding this, but the profit is private. We know that one or more members of the Urban Design Commission will benefit financially if this project moves forward. Members of this commission, the most vulnerable in our community need you to step up here.
30 seconds left.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, just as an afterthought for my remaining time, we have dozens of eyesore lots within a stone's throw of the same spot. We got the abandoned Westside Transfer Point. We got the abandoned Cub Foods. Is this really the spot for this? I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you.
Your next speaker is Margaret Porco of District 11, registered in opposition and representing the Montessori Children's House.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can. Welcome. Thanks.
All right. My name is Margaret Porco. I'm the board president of Montessori Children's House. I'm also a former student. The teachers who shaped my earliest years are some of the same teachers my own children have learned from. That continuity across generations is exceedingly rare and part of what is at stake tonight. MCH has served Madison's children for over 60 years. We're not opposed to development and we support affordable housing. But the commission cannot approve this project simply because it meets minimum dimensional standards. It must affirmatively find that all approval standards are satisfied. I believe they are not. This will impair our uses and negatively impact our property and operations. This project requires excavating a 2-level below-grade parking garage as part of Building A. This occurs within 75 feet of an active playground used daily by children as young as 18 months. The vibration, ground movements, noise, dust, and air quality impacts of that scale of excavation immediately next to a preschool will prevent required outdoor time, compromise nap environments, and expose children to conditions research shows impair cognitive development, as well as just general health issues. We've made our concerns clear to the developer, and the only commitment made has been the relocation of a dog run that poses a liability to them as well. Building A is not just taller than anything currently adjacent, it is far larger, far closer to our shared lot line, and will create residential units with windows and balconies in direct elevated sight lines over our playground. This conflicts with our licensing, security protocols, and families' reasonable expectations. I would suggest everybody take a look at one of the comments from March 13th that has a 3D rendering, including the school and topography for better context than has been provided. Given construction impacts over 2 years and the imposition of the mass and scale of Building A, after the fact, enrollment will decline. Our financial viability as a nonprofit will be impaired. These are not speculative harms. They are the foreseeable consequence of placing a building of this size and mass this close to a school. A greater setback is not an extraordinary ask. It is a reasonable accommodation that begins to address what this scale of development imposes on our school.
About 30 seconds left, Margaret.
Okay, thank you. Madison has built its character on something rare. The West Side represents this in that it still has locally owned small businesses, historic architecture, and neighborhood institutions with soul. Every time we approve a development that ignores scale, ignores context, and ignores the people already invested, we chip away at the character. These businesses and buildings cannot be rebuilt once they're gone. I also want to make the commission aware that I've been notified that a number of comments that were sent in much earlier in the week have not been included in the file. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
Okay, our next speaker is Mitch Olson of District 4, registered in opposition and also representing the Montessori Children's House. After that, we'll hear from Rihanna Drinkwater and Laura Balvium.
All right. This is Mitch Olson. Can you hear me?
And we can. Welcome. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Chairman. My name is Attorney Mitch Olson with the Axley firm in Madison. I practice land use and zoning across the state of Wisconsin. I'm retained by the Montessori Children's House at 5530 Medical Circle to represent their interest in this matter. I was able to submit a letter to the Plan Commission earlier today and want to highlight a few things from that. We are opposed to this proposal, and we base it on, I want to highlight the code that the committee has to make their decisions upon. The chapter 28.183, you're required to consider the impact on neighboring land and the public need. And you've already heard substantial testimony about those topics. The 28.183 sub 6, standards 1 and 3, I believe are relevant and have not been met here. Number 1 says that the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, general welfare. And standard 3 says the uses, values, and enjoyment of other property in the neighborhood for purposes already established will not be substantially impaired or diminished in any foreseeable manner. On that first standard, when it talks about establishment, that means basically creating or constructing the facilities that would be permitted here. It's not a situation where these large-scale buildings can just appear overnight. It's a long-term process of demolition, excavation, and construction. And a building of that height adds extra complications. This is all taking place. The boundary is roughly 100 feet from the wall of that building A to the rear side of the school's playground. And there's going to be construction work in between those two, narrowing the distance even further. That's, I think anyone would agree, unacceptable to have that amount of dust, noise, and the safety risks associated with a large-scale construction project immediately adjacent to the playground for young children that have to be out there 3 hours a day for their own well-being and to meet the expectations of the parents in the code.
So you have about 30 seconds left.
In terms of standard number 3, the child care center is an established use. It has to be considered as that. The construction impacts and the safety concerns that have been presented here, perching these residences 6-7 feet up and within 100 feet of the playground, again, is a serious concern. I don't believe the application meets the standards under the Act 67. It hasn't shown that there is significant, substantial evidence to support in meeting all the standards, and we request that this be deferred or denied. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitchell.
Our next speaker is Rihanna Drinkwater of District Unknown, Wisconsin, registered in opposition.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you. I want to take a minute and talk about safety. It's something that a lot of people have touched on, and they've spoken very eloquently about sunlight and pollution and sound pollution. And what they haven't spoken about is something that has unfortunately affected me, and that is the violence that is possible and is touching our community. In September of 2018, I was a victim of a workplace shooting in Middleton, Wisconsin. I still carry scars to this day from that incident. I am not untouched by violence, and nor is our community. In December of 2024, we saw the Abundant Life shooting that also occurred in Madison. We're seeing this continue to happen within our community, within places we dwell. When I looked at Montessori, I looked for safety. I looked for a place where my daughter, blessed,
Brianna, just wanted to note that we've lost your audio.
all time. I sit with my back to the wall. These are things I don't want my child to experience. These are things I don't want any child to experience. Well, we can't do any impact. We don't have any impact on gun control laws within this commission. We do absolutely have impact to the safety of our children. By putting a 6-story building as close to to the playground as we're proposing, we directly create opportunities for easy violence. I was 20 feet away when the man started shooting. My friends who were closer to 100 feet away were affected as well. Proximity matters. Please consider this. I relinquish my time.
Thank you, Rihanna.
Our next speaker is, and I apologize, Laura. Laura Valheim. I'm going to try that again. District 10, registered in opposition, also representing Montessori Children's House. After Laura will be Jim Lotridge, and then Michael Sinishali. I apologize for all the names tonight.
Can you hear me okay?
We can. Welcome, Laura.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Laura Qualheim. My husband, Jim Lotridge, and I are the directors of Montessori Children's House, we fondly call MCH, at 5530 Medical Circle. I've been with MCH nearly 36 years and in leadership for 20. MCH is a nonprofit 501c3 organization with a parent board of directors, and we serve families with children ages 18 months through 10 years of age, with the help of our excellent longtime staff with more than 160 years of service at MCH, a remarkable rarity in a field that's plagued with high turnover, as probably all of you know. We are state licensed, Youngstar rated 5 out of 5, City of Madison accredited. We are one of the first preschools accredited when the program was started in the 1970s, and the only verified American Montessori Society school in the area. We've been in business for 60 years, and we've been located on Medical Circle since 1991. The school owns the building, and we've considered our current location our forever home. Our building is surrounded by the proposed development at 5534 Medical Circle and 5555 Odana Road. They're directly to the west and to the north of us. We use our playground up to 3 hours per day year-round unless it's too cold or rainy. Most people know that outdoor play is an important part of early childhood education, but what you may not know is that state licensed childcare centers are required to have outdoor play daily, as long as it's not too cold or rainy. In other words, our playground isn't optional. We need to have a safe and secure access to it daily. Right now, we are hearing concerns from current families about safety, security, and privacy issues with this proposed development. And these families know us and trust us to work in the best interests of the children. However, for future enrollments, that will be different. When parents choose a preschool for their child, many factors go into their decision-making process. Curriculum, staff longevity, ratings, accreditations, length of time in business, and so on. But the bottom line is, how did they feel when they toured? Did the school feel safe, secure, private? What was their perception or their gut check? Every family takes a tour of our building and playground before enrolling, and when they stand on our playground and look up at balconies looking down over the playground, how will they feel? Probably not good. The development as proposed will take away from the feeling of safety and security and privacy we currently enjoy. It will be harder for us to retain current families and enroll new ones.
For about 30 seconds on your time.
Okay, thank you. A number of our current families have said to us, this feels like force out. Beyond the Montessori philosophy, the beautiful materials, the respectful interactions, beyond the kind and collaborative community, we often ask the children, what's our number one job? And they say, to keep us safe. How can we do that? There are guiding principles printed on the top of every city meeting agenda. Who benefits? Who is burdened? Who does not have a voice at the table? How can policymakers mitigate unintended consequences? We urge you to consider those questions. Thank you. Jim Lottridge will complete the remainder of our comments.
Okay. Our next speaker is Jim Lottridge of District 10, registered in opposition and representing the Montessori House.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Jim Lottridge, and you heard from my wife. We run the day-to-day operations at Montessori Children's House, which is directly south and to the east of this massive project. I would like to go over the timeline from our perspective, and as I recall it. First, we had a meeting with the owner of the properties. He set up the meeting with us to discuss potential exciting opportunity to rent. We were not interested as we already own our building. He verbally agreed to keep us in the loop regarding the process, but he never contacted us again. So after some time passed, I asked our board president to look into it. She found that it had been presented to UDC in September of 2025 as an informational presentation. So we reached out to our alder about it. The alder prompted Bear to contact us and set up a meeting. Bear told us we should assemble our team. I thought, team? Is this a game? We watched the informational presentation and noticed that we were omitted from the drawings. The photos took of surrounding businesses did not include us. The photo that they showed of the property east of 5534 Medical Circle did not show us, but instead it showed the west side of their building. We were not represented in their drawings, and they referred to us as commercial users. We wondered if UDC knew we existed from the start, would they have changed their guidance? So we engaged our community. Current families to families with grown-up children have submitted letters to UDC. We attended the UDC meeting and highlighted our concerns. Some of our parents did the same. When the public comment was over, the commission did not address our community's concerns, and they started talking about decorative grasses. They gave Bear initial approval. So what are we getting out of this process? No, the doggy run got moved away from the playground so the children won't get bit. We're getting some trees. Mostly, we're getting massive stress in an already busy time. Nobody in our orbit thinks this project is a good idea, and I'm having a hard time thinking about this process as anything but hopeless. We're told that no other preschools have been against similar projects next to them, and I think I know why. People in this field...
Just about 30 seconds left.
Thank you. People in this field are stretched way too thin, and they feel like their voices don't matter. By the time they get the postcard, it's too late. As one of our neighbors said, why fight? It's going to happen anyway. And if I'm wrong to think that this process is cynical, then why are we in such a hurry to approve this without adequately addressing our community's concerns? Instead of citing other preschools that got rolled over by this process as examples of how this could work, I urge you to send this back to the architects for a redo that addresses our community's concerns. By far, we are the community most affected by this development. Please listen to our words. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, our next speaker is Michael Sinishalchi. I'm going to try that again. District unknown, representing JSD Professional Services, registered in support. After Michael, we will have Jacob Webb and then Taryn Kasharik.
I'm the landscape designer and member of the project development team and available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay. Jacob Webb, also district unknown, registered in support and representing JSD Professional Services.
Hi, I'm Jacob Webb with JSC Professional Services, the civil engineer on this project. Working with a developer, we find that we have situated this building not only to meet the current ordinances for setbacks, as well as we have provided additional landscape buffers, taking into account our initial UDC meeting to where we got to the initial approval from UDC to provide additional landscape buffers, as well as relocate the dog run as presented by the developer. We also will be going back to UDC to provide additional landscaping for this project to get UDC approval. We've also coordinated with private utilities for this site that will have requirements and to meet those requirements as well. As mentioned, I'm a civil engineer and available to answer questions.
Thanks, Jacob.
Okay, and Taryn Kosharik, also District Unknown, registered in support and representing JSD Professional Services.
Chair, I'm not finding a person by that name in attendance.
Okay. Our next speaker then is Abigail Lindeman, District Unknown, registered in opposition and wishing to speak.
Again, I don't see a person by that name in attendance.
Okay, our next speaker is Blythe Kennedy of District 11, registered in opposition, wishing to speak. After Blythe is Victoria Williams, and after Victoria is Gennaro, represented by David Ortiz Whittingham.
I see your microphone is unmuted, so you have the floor. Blythe, are you able to speak? I see your microphone is unmuted.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, sorry about that. Hi, my name is Blythe Kennedy. I am a mom of a child that is currently attending MCH. I think we can all agree that we have an affordable housing crisis in Madison. We also have an affordable childcare crisis. And MCH is one of the few facilities that were available to our family. And honestly, if we are disrupted in her attendance due to construction of this project, I really don't know what we're going to do. So I just want to echo what Laura said earlier, that when looking at the agenda for the plan commissions, you say who does not have a voice at the table. My daughter, all the other kids at MCH, they don't have a voice at the table. They don't get to say that this is going to disrupt their lives, their childhood, their education. And if this was a school playground, like a K through 12, I feel like we would be taking this a lot more seriously. The fact that it's a daycare, I don't know why, but that just seems to be not as important than if this were a school playground and we knew that there were going to be apartment complexes looking directly into where children are playing. I also think as a residential or commercial property owner, I wouldn't want to be that close to a playground and trying to conduct business and trying to live while kids are screaming and playing. I don't know if you can hear my daughter right now, but she's pretty disruptive. So thank you for your time. And I just want to echo what everyone else has been saying, that this is not a really simple, easy to mitigate construction project. I think it's going to take a lot of time and sincere conversations about what we can do to make sure that it is not disruptive, and that the requests, which I think have been really reasonable about doing setbacks and reducing the number of balconies that are facing the playground, should be considered and not just brushed off. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Victoria Williams of District 11, registered in opposition and wishing to speak.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can. Welcome.
Perfect. So my name is Tori Williams. I'm a parent of 2 children who attend Montessori Children's House, as well as a homeowner in nearby Midvale Heights. I'm here tonight to ask you to reconsider the proposed developments that would surround and overshadow our neighborhood Montessori preschool, which, as you've heard, is an institution that has quietly but really profoundly enriched this community for over 60 years. We all recognize the need for thoughtful, well-planned density, but good planning isn't only about the number of units we can fit onto a parcel. It's about how our decisions shape the lived experiences of the people who are already here, especially our youngest residents who have no voice in this room. So a Montessori environment is not just a building with children inside it. It is intentionally designed around light, openness, and a deep connection to the natural world. Sunlight is not a luxury in that model, it's a core educational tool. Children learn by observing shadows, tending plants, and working in bright, calm spaces that support focus and emotional regulation. Surrounding a preschool on multiple sides with 6-story buildings creates a canyon effect, blocking light, increasing noise, and limiting airflow. In particular, the proposed building's configuration poses a serious health concern given the preschool's proximity to the highway. Boxing the school with tall continuous structures stands to limit airflow and trap high concentrations of vehicle emission. And we know young children are especially vulnerable to traffic pollution because their lungs are still developing. As a researcher at UW-Madison, I've published on how air pollution exposure negatively impacts health outcomes. In children, this includes higher rates of asthma, respiratory infections, and lifelong chronic disease. While the existing site promotes airflow to disperse these pollutants, enclosing the site with 6-story walls would funnel and accumulate harmful exhaust directly where our children learn and play. From a public health and planning perspective, we should not be designing conditions that intensify pollution exposure at an early childhood site. And the proposed apartments also fail to reflect that architectural character that makes this neighborhood unique and a point of civic pride. As embodied in the Marshall Urban building set for demolition, this area is widely recognized for its cohesive mid-century design, low profiles, human scale, generous setbacks, and a very intentional relationship between buildings, trees, and sky. By contrast, the current proposal introduces mass-produced looming structures with no visual connection to the surroundings. Replacing its distinctive architectural legacy with generic bulk diminishes the defining character of this neighborhood and subsequently its long-term value. I encourage the Commission to consider whether the scale and design of this proposal truly fits the character and functionality of this site. As proposed, the current development sacrifices both architectural heritage and child-centered urban design for bulk and density alone. We're not asking you to reject development. We're asking for a solution that offers a more contextualized, scaled, and protective design. Increasing the setback to match the neighboring property could still allow for new housing while preserving sunlight and airflow for our children. A city that values families, education, and human-centered design does not wall in its preschools. Development should enhance our community, not cast a shadow over its future.
Victoria, you're at time. If you could wrap up, please. Thank you.
Yep, I'm just saying thank you now. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, our next speaker is Gennaro, who is going to be represented tonight by David Ortiz Whittingham of the Worker Justice Wisconsin. Gennaro is registered neither in support nor opposition, but wishing to speak. David is going to help facilitate making sure that we can hear the speaker and is also going to provide interpretation services after he speaks and has asked the chair for a total of 6 minutes for the comment.
David, you're unmuted, so we should be able to hear you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Just a quick question before I start. Both Hinato and I signed up for public comment. Is it okay if I give my public comment first and then have him come on? Mine's less than 3 minutes, so the whole thing should take no more than 9 between the interpretation and the.
Sure. Certainly. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this matter. Bit of a change of gears from the previous topics, but my name is David Ortiz Whittingham. I work at Worker Justice Wisconsin, Madison's Workers' Rights Center. And in my job as the construction organizer, I work with construction workers across the city, educating them on their rights and empowering them to defend those rights. I'm here today to comment briefly on matters involving a previous site by this developer that I feel warrant the attention of the commission as it considers this new development. In early 2020-25, I was contacted by a group of more than a dozen workers on the site of the Intersect Apartments, a complex constructed by Construction Management Associates and developed by Bear Development, with public financing from the city on the east side. The workers were recruited in another state to complete the building's wood framing on behalf of the lower tier subcontractor on the site. The workers reported to us that the man who recruited them owed them more than $75,000 in missing wages, and that one of the workers suffered a serious eye injury on the site. Through a partner organization, we were able to connect these workers with legal representation. The cases are ongoing, but I can share that an agreement was recently reached under which all of the workers who reported missing wages will be paid in full, thankfully. Many of you are aware at this point that we had a demonstration and a press conference in front of City Hall to raise public awareness of the situation and more broadly of the experiences of non-union Latino workers in construction. The impetus for our action and its focus on Bear development was simple. Bear received public financing to construct a site in Madison. Events transpired on that site that frankly shocked the conscience, and the public has a right to know what takes place with the use of their tax dollars. As such, we held our public action to make that information available to the public and to the people who govern our city, calling on alders to meet with us and the workers we partner with to craft good policies to ensure accountability all the way down the chain. Madison is in dire need of housing and must build, but it should not be controversial that we must build ethically in this city. At Worker Justice, we believe all stakeholders, elected officials, developers, contractors, community members, and workers have a moral responsibility to ensure that workers are paid fairly and on time, and that they can access workers' comp. What we suggest to the Commission is quite simply that in light of the unacceptable events that we have documented on a publicly financed site in Madison, all future developers who seek public financing should be expected to enumerate to the city government the specific steps they're taking to ensure that the events of the Intersect apartments are never repeated and demonstrate follow through on such commitments. Thank you. I will now facilitate Gennaro's testimony who's following me up. One moment. Bueno, Genaro, le tengo en la llamada y cuando esté listo, yo le pongo en speaker. Genaro is going to read his testimony and then I will interpret following that. Bueno, cuando esté listo.
Hola, me llamo Genaro. En el año 2024, un señor que se llamaba Alfredo me invitó a un trabajo en el proyecto de STEP Apartamentos. Empezamos bien y yo y mis compañeros en enero 2025 echamos ganas en ese trabajo y Alfredo dijo que nos iba a pagar cada quincena. Pero 2 quincenas después, todavía no había aparecido nuestro pago completo. Alfredo nos mandaba un poco de pago para la comida y dijo que iba a pagarnos en unas quincenas más. Le teníamos confianza porque habíamos trabajado con él y no había fallado en el pasado. Pero seguía así sin el pago completo. Terminamos muy bien el trabajo, pero ya estábamos desesperados porque él dijo que nos iba a pagar todo lo que nos debía cuando había terminado el trabajo, pero ese pago no llegó. Alfredo dijo que no había recibido su propio pago para el trabajo, pero no sé si eso sea la verdad. Todo eso nos afectó muchísimo porque la verdad hicimos bien el trabajo. Entonces nos pone muy triste que nosotros le echamos muchas ganas en las compañías no nos quieren pagar y tenemos familiares e hijos que comen y necesitan alimentos. Nuestras familias se quedan desesperadas también porque les íbamos a mandar dinero, pero por la falta de pago no llegó nada para la comida u otros gastos. Para mí es una injusticia que no se nos pagó tal como se nos había prometido originalmente, lo cual nos causó dificultades a mí con mis compañeros. Lo mismo ya nos han pasado otros lugares 5 o 6 veces. Estamos agradecidos de que la construcción nos haya pagado. Tenemos que asegurarnos de que todos reciban sus salarios y de que nadie sufra las peruñas que nosotros sufrimos. y si llega a pasar, se ve avergonzable. Mi mensaje para los concejales es similar, únicamente que apoyan a la gente que trabajan. También echen la mano para que todo salga bien y no pase lo mismo que nos pasó a nosotros. Trabajamos por la necesidad, no por gusto, porque todos tenemos hijos e hijas, familiares para mantener. Gracias.
Gracias, Genaro. Ya voy a, now I'll interpret. Hello, my name is Genaro. In 2024, a man named Alfredo invited me to work at the Intersect Apartments project. My coworkers and I started off well in January of 2025. We worked hard, and Alfredo said he was going to pay us every 2 weeks. But a month later, our full pay still hadn't arrived. Alfredo would give us a bit for food and say that he would pay us in a few weeks. We trusted him because we had worked for him in the past and he hadn't let us down. But things continued the same without our full pay. We finished the work very well, but we were feeling desperate since he said he was going to pay us in full when the work had finished, but that payment never arrived. Alfredo said that he hadn't received his own payment for the job, but I don't know if that's true. All of this has affected us a lot since, to be honest, we did a good job, and so it makes us sad that we work hard on a site and in the end the companies don't want to pay us. And we have families and children who eat and need food. Our families are left hopeless too, since we were going to send them money, but because of the lack of pay, they're left with nothing to pay for food and other costs. To me, it's an injustice that we were not paid as originally promised, causing hardship. The same thing has happened to me and my coworkers at other locations 5 or 6 times. We are grateful that the builder paid us, but we need to make sure that everyone gets their wages and no one experiences the hardship we did. If it does happen again, it'll be quite shameful. My message for the city councilors is similar, simply that they should support the workers, that they should also lend a hand to make sure that things turn out well and what happened to us doesn't happen again. We work because we need to, not just for fun, because we all have sons and daughters and families to take care of. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Genaro.
Okay. Our next speaker is Stuart Keel. District unknown, registered in opposition wishing to speak. Stuart will be followed by John Porco and M. Anderson.
Oh, can you hear me?
We can. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Stuart Keel. My brothers and I own the property at, actually 2 properties, one at 5600 Medical Circle and one at 5610 Medical Circle. Both properties are adjoining this project. We've owned those properties for 10 to 20 years, depending on which property you look at. We don't necessarily oppose building or development or apartments, but on this particular project, we do oppose the size and height of building B that is approximately next to our 5600 property. From what I can see, that building, the face of the building will be roughly 225 feet long by roughly 60 feet tall. And having that be roughly about 10, 12 feet off our property line, we're really concerned about a massive looming effect over our small 1-story building. And that doesn't even account for what it will do to morning sun and or shadows. We do know that apartments across the Beltline, along with commercial buildings, are 4 stories. The apartments by Hy-Vee are 4 stories. And we're not really sure why this property needs to be 5, but I do know the Urbana apartments are 5 stories, which we had an issue with when that was built. So in our concerns, we're just basically thinking that the height is a bit much, or that there's no step back in that 5-story height. Which will certainly, have an effect on our building and our renters or tenants at that building. That's basically the only issue that we have with this current project, the way it's set. But we do have some issues that we had when the Urbana building was built, or apartments were built, and I think that's relative to this project because it's adjoining our properties again. And I'd like to mention that because we don't want to have this continue again, especially since we have 3 times the amount of apartments that would be going on to the block. Just to mention, we did have, while it was being built, subcontractors using our parking lot, materials being delivered through our parking lot, heavy equipment coming through our parking lot, all without our approval. Maybe having no construction parking signs provided to building neighbors would be nice. After the property was built and they're renting, the Urbana's renters tend to park in the back of our property occasionally.
Stuart, you're almost at time if you could wrap up.
Have their dogs sometimes do their business on our property without picking up, and we have trash also on our property. So
thank you, Stuart. Thanks for coming out.
Okay, our next speaker is John Porco, district unknown from Verona, registered in opposition, wishing to speak.
Hi, can you guys hear me all right?
We can. Welcome.
Okay, I will try to be briefer than my 3 minutes. I've been watching this whole meeting and, there's some things that are just kind of frankly shocking to me, and I can sort of understand why the city I grew up in is losing its character one cube at a time. That these decisions are made in such compartmentalized fashion that there's no room for you to apparently consider any of the human impact. There's no humanity in this decision at all. It took quite some chutzpah for the developer to say in their opening remarks that there's no neighbor impacts, when you've heard from neighbors on all sides that they haven't been considered, that these impacts are going to be them, and that the impacts exist because, it's one thing for the city to say, oh, we want 5-story buildings here, in spite of the fact that that's not the character of Medical Circle, at least. But then it's another thing for a developer to come in and ask for more. Not only are we going to meet the biggest requirements for 85% of the land and 5 stories, but then we're going to push for conditional use to get even more in there. We're going to cram it full of 1-bedrooms at 50 to 70% of median income, which doesn't fill the need that Madison has for people in Section 8 or coming off of Section 8, where you frankly have to get down to 30% of median income to make a difference in that housing crisis. And you have to build for families, not single bedrooms. I'm really curious because some other things that the developer said were that the staff came out and wanted to preserve a tree. If your system for approving properties is such that the staff can come out and look at approving a tree, but there's no mechanism for concern about the kids and the human impact that are next door outside of shadow surveys when the concern is clearly glare and pollution, then the process is a mess, an absolute mess. If your staff, like the developer said, wanted a cut through on Medical Circle that zigzags around a child's playground without considering any real safety measures, I'm just shocked that that's the process. I'm shocked that the staff would consider that. Or, as we just heard from the worker, maybe the developer's full of it. I don't know, but this has been a really eye-opening experience for me. So I don't need to repeat all the litany of concerns that have not been addressed because the developer doesn't seem like he's genuine at all about working with neighbors here. And I have serious questions about how the process for how buildings get approved when it's so compartmentalized that you can only think about this one thing when you're making the decision. Where does the humanity come into this decision? Where do we actually care about the lives of the people that are supposed to fill these buildings, about the kids that are supposed to live next door? This is
John, if you could wrap up, you have about 10 seconds.
I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, John.
Okay, next we will hear from M. Anderson, district unknown, registered in opposition and wishing to speak.
I can see you're unmuted. Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome.
Okay, great. Madison's planning standards require that projects adjacent to sensitive uses, including schools, preschools, and childcare facilities, must protect those uses from negative impacts. Montessori Children's House is exactly that. A preschool serving children ages 2 to 6. Approving demolition and multi-year construction just 50 feet from its playground would put a protected land use at risk before any mitigation is even planned. Madison needs housing, especially affordable housing, that is clear. But good planning must never come at the expense of our most vulnerable, our children. Montessori Children's House has served Madison families for over 60 years and for more than 30 years at its current location on Medical Circle in a Marshall Erdman Landmark A designated building. It is the only American Montessori Society verified school in the Madison area and one of only 3 in Wisconsin. This is a sensitive, adjacent use, a school serving children who cannot advocate for themselves or leave an unsafe environment. The responsibility to protect them falls to this commission. The school has invested decades in creating a carefully prepared learning environment. Every classroom, every playground space, every outdoor activity is intentional. Beautiful natural light fills the classroom. Outdoor time is a core part of the program. To experience it is to really know. The current proposal places demolition and multi-year construction 50 feet from the preschool program, eventually surrounding the school on 2 sides with a 6-story, 200-unit residential building. Under Madison's approval standards, the commission must determine that a project will not negatively affect the use, enjoyment, or value of surrounding properties and is compatible with adjacent uses. With the preschool immediately next door, there are seriously questions about compatibility. Without this information, it's difficult, I believe, for the commission to confidently make the required findings. Approving the project with unresolved questions about health, safety, and compatibility would be inconsistent with planning standards. The responsible action is to pause and vote no. The responsible action is to withdraw the application. At minimum, the project should be referred back to staff and the developer to address key issues. Revisit the timeline. July 2026 is 4 months away. Decouple Building A on Medical Circle from Building B on O'Dana Road. Maintain the original footprint of Building B on O'Dana Road, reduce height, and increase setbacks starting on any 3rd floor.
You have about 20 seconds left, please.
Revitalize the Marshall Erdman Building A on Medical Circle and preserve the mid-century character of Medical Circle. If deemed necessary that children cannot be safe there, provide financial resources and time for a safe temporary location if construction proceeds. Madison can build housing, but it cannot do so by putting young children in a long-standing community at risk. If the commission cannot confidently make the required findings tonight, the responsible decision is to vote no. Please help.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a number of speakers that have registered available to answer questions that I'm going to read now, and bear with me because they're in a couple sections here. Patrick O'Connell of District 14 is registered in opposition. Jenna Casper Gore, District Unknown of Monona, registered in opposition. LaDonna Steinert of Middleton, registered in opposition. Let's see here. Stephanie Odels of District 5, registered in opposition. Emily Foster Hill of District Unknown in Middleton, registered in opposition. Ari Urfano, looks like is also with JLA Architects, is registered in support and available to answer questions. Let's see here. Abigail Lindeman shows up here again, available to answer questions. Aaron M. Riley of District 14 is registered in opposition, also representing the Montessori Children's House. I think that may be it. And I'll note that after the meeting, we will make sure that a full updated list of all of the other registrants who have indicated their either support or opposition, but that are not wishing to speak will also be posted in full with the meeting materials. I will note for the commission's purposes that we have about 10 additional speakers who are not interested in speaking who registered in support, and dozens of folks who have registered in opposition.
Thank you, Megan. So are there questions from the commission for any of the registrants for this project? And again, well, the three items for us to consider are, excuse me. Yeah, so the three items for us to consider are the demolition permit, conditional use permit, and the certified survey map. Gotta get back to my agenda. Sorry about that. Alder Ugair, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to start with a couple of questions for the development team, probably Mr. Orthman. And then later I'll have some questions for one or more of the registrants in opposition. Nick, you're available, I see.
Yep, I'm here.
Could you just comment briefly, or just in general terms, you used the term affordability. One of the opposing registrants talked about what that might look at, but you could just let us know generally what kind of affordability and for what term that involves, and what kind of city or federal support that might involve.
Yeah, certainly. So the primary financing mechanism for the project is tax credits through WIDA. We'd be using their 4% program. And the income restrictions and rent restrictions that will be applicable to the building are for households that range from 50% AMI to 70% AMI. So from a rent standpoint, that puts a 50% one bedroom at about $1,200 a month. And then all the way up to a 70% two bedroom is at about $1,950 a month. So that's the range that we're working within. And then the 60s and 70% units kind of fall within that range. From an income standpoint, that's about, depending on the household size, roughly $50,000 a year to about $85,000 a year. The kind of baseline affordability period that comes with the WIDA tax credits is 30 years. And we are pursuing city TIF financing for this project that would then extend that to 40 years through Allura with the city.
Thanks, Nick. My next question, could you generally characterize the kind of tenancy you would expect in the large commercial area in the south building?
Yeah, I think to some extent it's a little bit TBD. I think that location on Medical Circle is probably not retail per se. So I think it's probably a commercial user, service-based or professional office, I think lawyer, dentist, accountant, et cetera. But we think it's something that would kind of fall within that category.
Thank you. You mentioned that you had some conversation with one of the Erdman children, I believe it is. And could you again go over what that discussion was and what they said about the importance of the building that's proposed for demolition?
Yeah, so we were fortunate enough to be able to connect with Tim Erdman, who is actually Marshall Erdman's son, so a direct descendant. And Tim also owns the building 2 doors down on the other side of the Montessori School at 5520 Medical. And his feedback was that he in no way really thought that this building or this collection of buildings was historic. It really was not the best representation of his father's work. And that was essentially it. He confirmed also that his building at 5520 is older, dilapidated, would probably take a lot of work to update and attract a new user. So very similar to our building at 5534.
Okay, thank you. So no indication that the family would be in support of creating a historic district to honor his father.
Yeah, that's correct. And that's in his public comment as well. So that's, he sent that in, and that's in the letter that he sent. We did talk with him about what we can do at our building to, pay homage to Marshall Erdman and his contributions to Madison, memorialize the context of Medical Circle and really, do some stuff in the lobby that memorializes that, through exhibits and artifacts or murals, et cetera. What that exactly looks like is still to be determined, but certainly something that we're interested in doing and, would commit to do for sure.
Thank you. Last question. One of the registrants in opposition expressed the concern for the kids of the kind of tenants that might occupy these buildings. Could you talk a little bit about the tenant approval process that will be used, given that this is a WIDA project?
Yeah, certainly. So, what we do at Bear is we generally self-manage all of our projects. So our property management company, which is Bear Property Management, they're an affiliated entity, will do, tenant screening before anybody's, approved to live in the building. That includes background checks, credit checks, and then, the majority of the requirements come through the city's tenant selection plan that would be applicable to this location if TIF funds are approved. So there is, a variety of different measures and factors in place that determine who can live here. But there's definitely a screening process. It's definitely thorough and well thought out, and we do it at all of our developments.
Thank you. Okay, that's all my questions for the developer. I'll stop here because there may be other questions for the development team while they're sort of on tap, and then I may have some questions later for other registrants.
Commissioner Heck, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, this probably is for Nick. Nick, I think earlier on another project answered the concerns about labor not being paid. So I'd like you to touch on that again if you could. And also, speaking of labor and construction, could you also talk about ways that your construction process can minimize the impacts on the neighbors?
Yeah, for sure. And we've got, Adam from our team is on, and he's been really kind of in the mix on some of the labor stuff that you heard about earlier. So I don't know if there's a way to unmute Adam or if he's already unmuted, but he's probably best suited to answer that question.
Yep. Adam, you are unmuted now.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Yeah, so I think your question's in reference to the comments related to a worker of claiming unpaid wages on the Intersect project. And there were comments that were submitted to the city. There was a letter submitted to the city. We had provided a written response to that detailing our reaction and feel that the claims are just false, and we provided background documentation on why those are false. There was an instance at the Intersect site where we were made aware of workers that were unpaid wages. When we were made aware of that, this was a lower tier subcontractor. Those wages were immediately restored. There was another claim then just recently with some additional commentary. Again, when we were made aware of this claim, the wages were immediately paid. These were not contracts that we were a party to. They were a subcontractor to a subcontractor. So, we, when made aware of any issues, we addressed those issues immediately. We were the solution, and we drove the solution to those. Just like the gentleman talking before, we won't stand for people not getting paid, and we'll do whatever we can to ensure that those people working our sites are paid the full wages they are owed.
Thanks, Adam. And I mean, the buck has to sort of stop somewhere. So is the subcontractor above this subcontractor someone you're still working with, or how do you prevent this from happening in the future?
Yeah, this specific situation was it was a subcontractor that our construction team had hired, and they hired a subsequent subcontractor to perform some of the work. So we were not a party to that contract with the contractor in question. Certainly, as you said, if we come across these situations, there are groups that will be on the not to engage list any further. We do as much due diligence as we can to prevent this from happening, and are largely successful in preventing it from happening. If we are made aware of a situation, just like we did here, we quickly resolve the issue.
Okay, thanks. I'd like, maybe it's Nick who will answer my other question, but I'm wondering if Alder Figueroa Cole might have a question on the same subject, Chair, if it's okay to let her interrupt.
Sounds fine. Alder Figueroa Cole, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick, for reading my mind. I just want to clarify that there has been a little bit of confusion about the group that called today and the group that there's at least two groups that are making claims. So there's a little separation there. But the question for Adam is, we haven't spoke, but I'm more than happy to have a direct conversation with you at some point. And my question to you is, are you willing to work with at least the workers' justice team to ensure that you have policies in place to avoid these from happening in the future? Because just as Commissioner Heck mentioned, the buck does stop somewhere, and it's a matter of reputation and a matter of safety for these workers. So are you willing to engage with this group specifically to have conversations on how to create policy that prevents this from continuing to happen in the future?
Absolutely. And we have policies in place that we follow, and like I said, it prevents a lion's share of items, and we're always open to further ideas. We did reach out to these groups that had submitted the claims. We have not received a response from them, and we had not received a response from any of the groups prior to letters going to, or we had not received an inquiry from any of the groups prior to letters going to council. We were made aware of these issues by a letter going to council. So, as we were made aware of them, we addressed them and are happy to meet further and discuss options for further mitigation in place.
Okay, so then again, just opening the door for you to reach out to me, or I can reach out to you and try to make those connections and get this moving. I think the city has limited options, but we have options that we can implement as a policy. And I would love for that policy to come as, for you guys to be part of that decision-making process. Thank you.
The offer, I'll plan to follow up with you tomorrow.
Thanks.
Okay, construction question. Is that for Nick or for Adam? Construction impacts.
Yeah, we'll tag. I was gonna say, shoot the question, and we'll tag team it.
Yeah, I mostly just want to know what you can do to mitigate the effects of construction, because some of your neighbors apparently were highly impacted by an earlier project that was constructed, and what can you do to minimize cut through traffic? One property owner suggested you're supplying signs. How can you minimize that?
Sure. I would say in general, we will have to have a construction traffic plan that's approved by the city. We'll have a safety plan in place that follows city, state, federal requirements. We met with the Montessori school about several items. It is a construction zone, so it's going to be noisy. There's only so much that you can do to mitigate noise.
Adam, I don't know if you could be closer to your microphone, but you are kind of hard to hear. She says with her bad voice.
Adam, I guess I live right by East Washington and have witnessed a lot of construction down here. Despite good intentions, oftentimes, I guess we're getting into contractors and subcontractors again. the policies of Bear Development may not be followed, and it's always helpful to have people on site and phone numbers and contact information given to neighbors so they can talk to you and say, hey, this is happening, what can we do? That's something you typically do or can commit to?
That is something that we do. Yeah, it's something we do. It's something that we can commit to. We always have at least one on-site representative that is either it's a representative, an employee of Construction Management Associates, which is our general contracting arm. There are 1 to 2 people on site at all times at each of our sites. I know that with Intersect Development too, there was some reach out from neighbors, and there was connection with people on site. To the extent our folks on site can't handle it, there are additional project managers and others that do and will get involved to address any concerns. I think we generally have the contact information is available on websites. It's available on site. So we do make that a priority to make sure that something that we are proud of at Bear is from the beginning to the end. You're dealing with somebody at Bear through the development process, the construction process, and ultimately the property management. So through the whole process, we are taking accountability and standing behind the projects.
Great. Yeah, getting that contact info out there to neighbors is key. Thanks. Those were my questions.
Thanks, Commissioner Head. Other questions for registrants? Alder Yeager.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question for Margaret Porco, if she's available. There you are, Margaret. Margaret, I had a chance that maybe you didn't quite finish all of your remarks when you were talking, since considering your position on the board, I am assuming that my colleagues on the commission will not object if you need another minute to finish any of your thoughts.
I appreciate that very much. I did finish most of my thoughts. The only things that I did not get to specifically state were just the things that we are asking for in terms of moving Building A back and looking at or whether we can have the redesign to reorient some of the sight lines so that they're not so directly elevated over that playground. And yeah, I would just encourage everybody to look at that exhibit that one commenter did to see, because the elevation, the change in topography really does increase the scale and size of the building. So from the vantage point of the school, it's much more than 6 stories tall. Because of that drop off, it's almost an additional 2 stories that is 75 feet from the playground. So that's what I would add there. I tried to talk as fast as I could, Alder.
No, that's fine. You did a fine job. If you're comfortable talking about this, you've had some conversations proposing potential assistance in things that the school thinks it might need to do to mitigate future impacts aside from the construction period. Would you be comfortable talking about some of the things that you thought might be helpful?
Sure. I can also defer that to the directors of the school who have a good sense of exactly what that.
That is fine.
Yeah, I would defer to them on that.
Lottridge to make those comments, that would be fine.
Yep, if they are available, I would defer that question to them.
Okay.
So I think that's
it's Mr. Lottridge.
Yeah. Thanks. Oh, you get.
Yeah. So Jim, what's up? Oh, you've got it. Okay. And Laura Walheim.
Hi. Yeah, we're actually here together right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Jim. First of all, let me say thank you for the tour of the facility I had and sharing, right on site the kind of concerns you have and why you have them. But if you're comfortable talking about some of the things that you've suggested, I guess, asks to the developer, not specifically about the construction period, but particularly things you think would be helpful in the long run for the school that would help mitigate some of those concerns?
Yeah, okay, so not pertaining to the construction, which would make us not be able to use the playground realistically, which we're legally required to do. But notwithstanding that, we had talked about having them replace a security fence, putting up a new fence because there are going to be way more people walking around in the area. So having a security fence that's locked, one that's better than what we have. And having shade sails installed to keep the privacy better. And I don't have all the prices on that, but
that's okay.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, I mean, some of the concerns were sight lines from balconies, and frankly, it just seems like an architect could fix that pretty quickly. But that's not what you're asking me. So mainly the fence and maybe some trees that would block the view, anything that would help block a sight line from the apartments to make, honestly, just to make parents feel like they're dropping their kids off at a safe, private place. You can imagine what that would be.
We had somebody come out to our building a couple weeks ago. We took him out the back door, which we did for you, Alder. And he looked up and we described the apartment building, and here's the word he used: creepy. The age we live in of gun violence, cell phone cameras, AI misuse, the age we live in. 25 years ago, 30 years ago, nobody would have thought anything about it probably, but it is different times. It's different times right now. And
it just seems to me like, forgive me, this is not answering your specific question, but it just seems to me like we have architects to solve problems. We have a problem with this design. And so really the best person to fix this problem is an architect.
so really, yes, trees, fence, shade sails, screening, all of that stuff would be excellent. But what would really be the most helpful is building A, built on the current footprint of Supreme, and the back of the building, the south side of the building, redesigned with stairwells and corridors, not balconies and windows. That's really what we would like. And 5534, if it must be demolished, build something to suit the size and scale of Medical Circle.
Well, thank you. And I think one thing we all heard tonight is that the parents of your students love what you have created there and are definitely emotionally attached to the experience. And I hope you're proud of what you've accomplished. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for registrants? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on items 8 through 10 and ask if commissioners have questions for staff. Alder Yeager, you have a new question, or is that residual?
No, this is a question for staff.
Great.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The staff report did make reference the other situations. I think there were 4 other situations where a school or playground or daycare center service to children was adjacent to the construction of an approved large building. Do we know if the programming, the daily activities of those school facilities had to be curtailed during the construction period, or were there any special features of the construction period plan that was part of the permitting process that needed to be involved there? I'm kind of building on some of those questions that Commissioner Heck had before on construction period impacts.
My colleague Colin Punt did the staff report, but I know the Valor, the fourth one that's referenced, I think that's the most applicable because it was the Tenney preschool and childcare. The staff report mentions a number of things about directing the HVAC systems, changing up some of the parking exhaust away from it. He did the research. Unfortunately, I don't know any of the further details of examples, but that's one, at least in the staff report, where they address the building. I cannot speak to the specific programming of the childcare.
Okay, thank you.
Could maybe put our school district rep on the spot. One of the projects that was referenced in the staff report is the RISE development that is adjacent to Hawthorne Elementary School. And I don't know if Rep Chiak would know if there were any changes in operations for the school during that time.
No, we did not alter any things going on. We did monitor any construction vehicles in and around the facility to make sure our students were safe, especially crossing Fair Oak Avenue. But there was no change to anything that was happening on our sites at the time.
Do I see that? Oh, we have Sean Malloy here from Traffic Engineering, if I note correctly. Sean, there have been some comments about concerns about air quality because of the juxtaposition of these buildings and the Beltline. Do we have any insight into what impacts on air quality might be?
I do not know about air quality. That is a little out of our purview there, unfortunately.
Okay, sorry. Thought maybe in all that we do on traffic that there might be some information on that. Okay. Has any staff interaction occurred with the Erdman estate or Erdman family members about their feelings? We've heard about the contact from with the developer. I was just wondering if there was any staff contact or if you knew anything beyond the what the developer provided in comments.
I see Chris is unmuted. I don't believe so, but if you have any additional information, please advise. No. So I believe the communications that we have received are the same ones that are in the public record that the Plan Commission has available.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thanks, I'll let you get. Other questions? Commissioner Solheim, thank you.
Thank you. Just quick point of clarification. If the building A, the majority of it is, I'm comparing like the land use map in the West area plan and the plan looking at it, it looks like the majority of the building A area is in that 6-story height. The last chunk of it is 5 stories, the back part of it. But if theoretically, if it, that line was moved a little bit, so the whole building was in the 6-story area, it would not require a conditional use for height, which is why building B does not require a conditional use for height because it's fully in the 5-story area, correct? It's kind of just like where that line is falling currently. I probably didn't articulate that very well because it's after 9 o'clock and my brain is mush, but
You articulated it well.
I'm just trying to understand the difference in conditional use for height between those two.
Yeah, your question is very clear. Chris, do you want to take a swing at this one?
Just checking the height requirements in CCT. Just 1 second.
So the reason that you have the conditional use request in front of you for building A is because the zoning district, CCT, has a maximum height limit of 5 stories and 78 feet. So that would be applicable to both building A and building B. However, the ordinance does allow for the Plan Commission to consider additional height above 5 stories. And when you do that as a conditional use, you look at consistency with the plan recommendations. So as you noted, Commissioner, building A, the majority of building A is within the mixed use future land use recommendation that recommends a 6-story height limit. The portion of the very southern corner of the building and building B are within an area that's recommended for 5 stories.
Okay, thank you.
So if we're ready to start thinking about a motion, we would want to start with item 10, which is the demolition permit for 5534 Medical Circle. Alder Ugare.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to move that the Plan Commission finds that the standards for demolition are met. In particular, that it serves the goals for development for the areas set forth in the previous plans for the area, the West Area Plan and the preceding Odana Area Plan. And that it also meets standard number 2, given the information that was provided by the developers with regard to the condition of the building and the comments from the current owner, and that therefore we should approve the demolition, but with the staff recommended condition on preserving historical information, measurements, and so forth.
Thank you. Alder Field. Second, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Alder Ugare.
Yeah, I just make some comments.
Please.
I'd like to make some comments on my motion.
Yes. No, I think that's appropriate, so go ahead.
Okay. First of all, let me disclose that it's somewhat awkward to talk about a building having historical value that was built while I was a junior and senior at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. It probably says something about my condition, but we won't go there. I've known about Marshall Erdman for many years and what he's accomplished, probably in part because of a sister-in-law that worked for the Erdman organization for a while. And I heartily recommend to people to read a recent article on the Erdman legacy that appeared in the most recent issue of Madison Magazine. He's quite a guy, not the least reason being that he survived being a general contractor for Frank Lloyd Wright, which not every general contractor that worked for him did. But we've heard the testimony that the family is not particularly interested in this. There's questions as to the future of the other buildings in the row. The possibility of a future application for a district status, historical district status for this row is highly questionable. And I think that all speaks to why it's perfectly permissible for us to approve demolition. Thank you.
Any other discussion? We'll call a vote. We'll start. Is there any objection to unanimous approval for the motion on the table? All right, seeing none, the motion is passed. And now I'd look for a motion on item 11, Register 91512, which is the conditional use for dwelling units, the number of units and the stories and height. Alder Ugare.
Let me just say that in many ways, this is a difficult motion for me to make. On the one side, I've gotten to know some of the folks associated with the school, and we've heard how passionate they are about what they do here tonight. I'm also mentioning, as some of you know, that I did a public information meeting last October, on the progress we've made in really reworking the future of this whole area between West Town and what was Westgate, and between Mineral Point and Schrader Road, and how this might fall into that same area. So I'm going to move that the Plan Commission finds that all conditions are met, and that includes comments as laid out in the staff report for standards 3, 4, 5, and 11, and that we approve the conditional use permit for 5555 Odana Road and 5534 Medical Circle, subject to the conditions in the staff report.
Alder Glenn seconds the motion. Any additional discussion on the motion? I'm sympathetic with your comments, Alder Ugare, because obviously there's a lot of strong feelings on all sides, and we do hope that if the project is approved, that the process will maybe allay some of the worst fears that we've heard expressed tonight. But go ahead, I won't speak for you.
Yes, let me first speak to my motion. Again, I want to thank all of the folks that have turned out to express their support for the Montessori school and so forth. And I hope that as we move forward, some of their concerns can be allayed. All of us who are parents and grandparents recognize the intense emotional need to insulate our kids and grandkids from any conceivable source of harm. Make sure that their education can't be diminished in some way because of the location where they're being educated. So it's easily, I think, for us humans to assign a greater probability to possible horrors than actually exists. And I refer in that regard to what we've learned from the other schools that exist adjacent to two large buildings. I'm in thinking about this situation, and I'm certainly hopeful that the construction period plan will result in a series of policies and standards that will be in effect during the construction period that will minimize the impact in this area. But I've been thinking about the degree to which the Montessori tradition can or would not flourish in an urban setting. Because what we're really looking at here is the transformation from a kind of suburban feel to this whole area where this project and others are being developed, that very much was a suburban style thing, something we'd see in a suburb of Milwaukee or Chicago or Philadelphia or Boston. But here we were able to develop this kind of thing. And now here we are as a plan commission, as a city, with our Housing Forward initiatives that are really transforming this whole area from a suburban feel to an urban feel. And that can be certainly stressful. And it brings, at least in my mind, it brought up a question as to whether the Montessori tradition can exist in that kind of urban environment. So while it may not be totally relevant, I'll just mention here that this last week, I just wanted to find out, used several search engines, and the simple question I asked was, are there Montessori schools that exist in places like downtown New York, Boston, Chicago, Toronto, Atlanta? Turns out that there weren't in Atlanta, but all of those other cities had multiple Montessori schools that existed right downtown. And I used Google Earth to take a look at those areas and so forth. And indeed, we, whether part of a high rise or just a low rise building, they were sitting next to much taller buildings than we're talking about here, but seem to be thriving. I noticed in particular a downtown Montessori school in Toronto that's been in business for 45 years and had a very long waiting period for people interested to get their kids in there. So my hope would certainly be that this Montessori school, with all it's accomplished, could continue to exist in that exact location and thrive, maybe not in spite of, but perhaps because of all of the additional population that's going to come into the area, some people with kids. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Alder Glenn.
Thank you, Chair. When I became an alder and I ran because of lived experience and identities and believing in processes and knowing that you're going to run into nights or times that all of your identities and all of your lived experiences are going to come crashing in, sometimes disguised as different words. Tonight was my first one, and sometimes I'm going to have to learn to get a little thicker skinned. I always consider myself a rough and tumbler. And then you have nights that are just hard. As a public health official and someone who worked there for many years, and was at the Abundant Life Christian Day School on the ground the day of the incident, that identity came rushing in. As a Black woman, as someone who grew up in low-income housing and now does human services work and around peer support. And a peer support specialist, someone with lived experience with mental health and or substance use. And now an elected official sitting on a plan commission. I do this work because I don't want things and rules and ordinances to be in place that historically kept me from places like this. This commission is required to ask in every meeting who benefits, who is burdened, who does not have a voice at the table. Tonight, those questions, for me, have clear answers. Bear Development is bringing 227 income-restricted affordable apartments to transit-accessible West Corridor. Every unit rent restricted. Every household at or below 60% of the median income. The financing is assembled, the design has been reviewed. And this is precisely what our comprehensive plan for housing goals and our budget commitments say we need. I want to also just directly address opposition we heard tonight that has me having a hard time being able to speak. Construction impacts on neighboring childcare centers are real. I'm a mother. And those can be managed, and we talk about those. I would support asking Bear and requiring Bear to some kind of plan that could be helpful to child drop off. But that's a legitimate condition. What is not legitimate is using childcare center as a shield against housing for low-income families. That pattern has a name. Across this country, affordable housing has been blocked by opposition that invokes schools, parks, and childcare proxies for arguments that cannot be made openly. Although I think I might have heard a couple of those. Madison redlined its neighborhoods. We steered Black and low-income residents away from opportunities for decades. We do not get to call ourselves a city committed to equity and then deny housing the moment neighbors object to who their neighbors might be. The 227 families who will live in this building are not a threat to this neighborhood. They are this neighborhood. I encourage my colleagues to vote yes and be willing to say clearly for the record that fear of low-income neighbors is not a planning based for denial. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder Glenn. Alder Figueroa Cole, I see your hand is raised.
Thank you. I sit here listening to public comment and trying to get some of the work done, but I'm really listening. And there were some comments in there that just gave me pause. So I didn't want to speak up, but if I don't, when is a good time to really have these tough conversations? I don't know. I feel like I'm having them already all the time, but I feel at this moment, I don't want to pass the opportunity because some of this commentary was a little hard to swallow. So I am very, very familiar with the Montessori school system and their philosophy. My son is an alumni from the school. There used to be a school right here in Brita Parkway, Brita Drive, near my place. Many years ago, before they put even that silent wall, so it was right there on the bed line in a surrounded by a low-income neighborhood with a small area for the kids to play and a tall fence. And that experience of someone like me with very limited resources at the time, to be able to apply for a grant and be given the opportunity to have my son there to begin his academic life is something that I have always cherished, because the lessons that he learned there are things that shaped the person that he is today. And I'm always grateful to that. So to hear some of the things today was extremely distressing. To hear people speak of affordable housing as if people coming into this building are less than. One caller even brought up concerns about sex offenders moving in. So it is very easy to let fear and emotions dictate the things that we say about people that we don't even know. So, but I mean, as easy as that is, it really is just not okay. It really is not okay. I remember from my, the teachings of the Montessori today, it's just like they were so present on me, because I know that they're not about judging others, people's cultures or where they're coming from or what financial status do they currently have. So my experience there was the one that I remember, was one that welcomed all sorts of people. People like me that cannot even afford to be in that school. So I'm pretty sure I have total faith that the Plan Commission will follow the state statutes when it comes to this particular issue and will support this project. So I'm not even speaking to the Plan Commission's vote. I'm really speaking to the public on this one again. Every time that we try to put affordable housing, no matter where that is, either in a single family home neighborhood or in a commercial site like this, there's always people coming through with this messaging, with this negative messaging of people that you don't even know. So I please ask you to please stop doing that. Because the more you do that, honestly, from this moment on, every time I hear that, I'm just going to take my time and call it out. So that's all I have to say. I thank you for the commission for giving me the time to speak. but I needed to get that out of my chest so I could be able to sleep tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Commissioner Sanders.
Thank you, Chair. I'm planning on voting in support of this, and I just wanted to thank Alder Glenn and Alder Figueroa Cole for sharing their personal experiences. This is also something that I feel pretty personally about as well, for many of the same reasons. But thinking also about, who is represented and who has a seat at the table, I think that we would be remiss to not mention the fact that a lot of our low-income neighbors don't often have the resources to attend these meetings and advocate for themselves. And so I'm looking forward to continuing these new area plan processes to get more of that input from our broader community so that everyone is able to be represented well and have a seat at the table and have their voice be heard. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Sanders. Any other comments or discussion on the motion on the table? All right, seeing none, I will call us to a vote. Is there, Alder Figueroa Cole, I'm assuming your hand is just hanging out on, so thanks. Is there any objection to unanimous approval for the motion to approve the conditional use? All right, seeing none, that motion is passed. And we should now move to item 12, which is Legistar 91514, and that is the recommendation to approve a certified survey map. So I'd look for a motion and a second on that item. Alderfield.
Thank you, Chair. Just sorry to confirm, this is item 12.
12, yes.
Yep. Okay. So I move that the Plan Commission forwards Legistar 91514 to the certified survey map of property at 5555 Odana Road and 5534 Medical Circle to the Common Council with a recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Alder Glenn. Thanks for the second. Any additional, Director Tuttle? Yes.
Could I just ask the Alder to confirm if that includes a recommendation that the standards for CSMs are met?
It does. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional discussion or explication on the motion? We'll call that one to a vote. And is there, Chris?
I'm sorry, is there a second?
Alder Glenn seconded. She did it really quick. And I tried to call it out, but you probably didn't hear that, so that's fine. Any objection to unanimous approval? All right, seeing none, we'll mark that item as approved. And we will go to member announcements, communications, or business items. Anything anyone wants to share? Well, I'm looking forward to our time together in a couple weeks, and we can have a good discussion then. And we'll move then to the Secretary's report, Megan.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I just want to thank everyone who participated in this meeting tonight. Thank you, Chair Gnam, for being here tonight, despite both your help and your internet challenges. And thank you, Commissioner Solheim, for stepping in to chair for us on the spot. Appreciate everyone's participation this evening in a meaningful way. I only wanted to echo what the chair mentioned, that the next time we will see each other will be in the municipal building downtown for our special meeting on Tuesday, the 31st. I mentioned at our last meeting some of the topics we're expecting, but we expect to have the agenda out next week. And then one item that is not on your agenda under recent Common Council actions that I wanted to note. At the council meeting on the 10th, the council passed a resolution related to an issue of the April Hills neighborhood in the southeast area of the city, intending to file a petition to annex to McFarland. This is an area of the city that the city of Madison and the village of McFarland have been negotiating plans for an intergovernmental agreement to set a future boundary between the communities. and is a neighborhood that is currently in Blooming Grove, but will be attaching to Madison at the end of 2027. Ultimately, as the conversations have been underway related to all of that planning work with McFarland around the future boundaries, residents of the April Hills neighborhood filed an intent to file an annexation petition. And so the council passed a resolution related to expressing its belief that it can better serve the April Hills neighborhood as part of that statutory review process. I'm flagging this just because this is something that would normally come to the commission, like the Westport Cooperative Plan item did tonight, as it relates to long-term growth of the city. Unfortunately, given the statutory timelines and the notice process, we did not have time to bring that to the commission. So I just want to make sure you're aware that that resolution happened. And that future agreements, if any related to boundaries with McFarland, will come to you before they go to the council in the future. Happy to answer any more questions offline if you have them.
Thanks, Megan. Any questions from the commission for Megan? All right, if not, I would look for a motion to adjourn in a second. Alder Glenn, thank you. Alder Field, thank you. Any objection to unanimous approval for the motion to adjourn? Seeing none, we'll stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you all.